The youth get a lot of flack for being too bold, impetuous, and self-confident. But their power should not be underestimated. This rising demographic has the right, the skills, and the numbers to truly make a difference in government and society. According to the Commission on Elections, the youth sector, ages 18 to 29, make up more than one-third of registered voters for the 2019 midterm elections. Integrating the youth to the electoral process is vital for democracy to work. Efforts to educate and empower them with critical thinking can have a significant impact on the polls. On Profiles, we get into the minds of youth leaders behind the Tatak Botante voter education campaign, delving deeper into the issues that matter to them and their participation in nation building. Tatak Botante was launched in 2012 at the University of the Philippines, Diliman by the University Student Council, together with the Commission on Elections and other student and people's organizations. One of the Tatak Botante founders, 28-year-old youth leader, TV host, and entrepreneur Jules Giang, was inspired to come up with a campaign as a college student at UP, ahead of the 2016 presidential elections.
I was heading the Education and Research Committee of the Student Council. And coming from the public administration background, we were taught about good governance and citizen participation. So I thought of mainstreaming voter education kasi yun naman talaga yung pinakamahalaga na from the university level pa lang, talagang pinapalakas natin yung pagiging matalino, pagiging matalas sa pagsuri natin sa mga kandidato natin.
So how does the team work?
Voluntary siya from the very start. So from UP, from different colleges, we have young professionals, we have students, even senior highs.
That's nice to see that. And Danny, you joined for this election period. What drew you to join Tatak Botante?
It's kind of a personal responsibility for me. Kasi after I graduated, it was so hard to maintain the para sa bayan spirit in me kasi I'm working in a corporate world. So I wanted to still be involved. So I volunteered for Tatak Botante initially as just a supporting officer, and then I was promoted to project leader.
Through its voter education activities and a social critic of the country's electoral culture, Tatak Botante makes sure to apply 3 core values.
Talino, matalas, at malayang botante. Matalino, of course, we want to use our critical thinking. Matalas yung pagsusuri, pagsisiyasat mo mismo. And malaya na hindi mabibili yung boto mo. Kasi it's very tempting right now, especially in trying times, di ba?
Ano yung mga iba-ibang programa or activities nyo?
We have a Be Botante voter education campaign online. And then we also have the anti-Apple campaign, which started out as a contest, so it's a photo essay contest, but right now we're turning it into a crowdsourcing initiative. We also have ang pagsusuri, which is a convocation of candidates. So we already had vice presidential convocation and senatorial convocation. So for this elections, we turned ang pagsusuri into an online platform to hopefully reach more people, so not just the youth.
There have been times that older generations have said younger generations, the millennials or even Z generation, apathetic daw sila, self-centered, lazy. What do you have to say to those claims?
I think hindi lang nabibigyan ng platform or opportunities. Kasi in our experience, ang daming interested talaga na talagang even may work sila, may studies sila, kaya nila yung pagsabay. You can even measure their siguro pagiging active sa social media kasi talagang maingay sila sa social media.
Danny, since you're very active with the social media activities, what do you think the youth are looking for? What are you learning from these conversations? Yung mga reactions nila or tanong nila?
They're very passionate din po for movement and change. For example, yung pag-remove ng scholarship for na red tag na students. So issues
Tuition fees,
tuition fees, yes.
Every election period, Tatak Botante holds various nonpartisan activities to engage youth participation in agenda setting and nation building before and after elections. Voters' education events are typically held at schools, such as this one at De La Salle, Lipa.
Ano ang kahalagahan ng eleksyon or pagboto sa isang bansa tulad ng Pilipinas?
This voters education po talagang nakatulong siya. Alam mo kung paano ka pipili. Dapat pipili tayo kung ano yung plataforma nila, kung ano yung stand nila, at kung paano sila gagalaw po when nasa posisyon na po sila.
Ako po kasi non-voter. Ang natutunan ko po sa activity na ito, kahit po sa amin pong hindi pa po voters, ay meron pa rin kaming karapatan upang makialam at mag-engage sa ganitong mga klaseng movement. Yung campaigns po na run by the Tatak Botante is a great opportunity. Mas nagkakaroon pa ng malawak na pananaw sa mga nangyayari po sa lipunan.
Ang power ay nasa atin. Binibigyan lang natin sila ng pwesto para pamunuan tayo.
Napakahalaga ng voter education sa mga kabataan ngayon. Kailangan nating gabayan yung mga kabataan sa tamang pagboto. Ano ba yung mga kwalifikasyon na dapat sundin o hanapin ng mga bagong botante?
Young people want serious information as elections loom large. These youth leaders and the participation of their peers through the Tatak Botante activities show the youth are eager to share their views and want to hear more from government leaders on important issues the country faces, such as the war on drugs.
Lahat naman, unifying naman na talaga ayaw natin sa illegal drugs. Pero meron naman ibang pamamaraan siguro na mas legal. Diba sikat na sikat yung buzzword yung change ngayon eh. Let's give change a chance for those people na naligaw ng landas. Kasi poverty issue rin to eh. Nalulung sila doon kasi yun yung easy money siguro for them. We're not justifying their actions because it's wrong. Pero yun nga, mas palalimin siguro natin yung pagsuri doon sa problema na yun. Another thing is sa basic social services like the water crisis. Kami dito 24 hours, wala kaming tubig. Ay, ito siguro yung mga issues na dapat din na pinag-uusapan ng mga candidates natin beyond their jingles and dancing and singing. Dapat pag-usapan ano yung solution nila dito sa mga problema na to.
Concern ko yung safe spaces for women and for everyone din. Very trivial yung admin natin ngayon. So I think it's influencing the people, how they look at women or how they respect people in general.
Hearing these young leaders speak their minds, it's evident that decision makers must meaningfully engage with the youth and acknowledge the importance of their voices, energy, and vision to a healthy democracy.
Anong klaseng leaders ang hinahanap niyo?
Yung mga talagang pure yung heart nila mag-serve sa country, hindi para sa sarili nila.
We need to equip our young voters if we want to create a better political landscape for our nation. Indeed, it takes a village. These passionate young leaders are trying to do just that through the Tatak Botante voter education campaign. The Tatak Botante team consists of members of the National Alliance of Youth Leaders, or NAIL, a nationwide group of young leaders working with various sectors for nation building and towards a more progressive community.
Our team right now is the third batch of Tatak Botante na. We have one events team and one social media team. This team are those na based sa Metro Manila na makakapag-mobilize sa mga events nga.
Ano yung nagmo-motivate sa inyo? Ba't kayo nag-join dito?
What really motivates me na i-push yung Tatak Botante is to really serve the country. So, nasa sa atin yung desisyon kung gusto talaga natin gumawa ng paraan para mabago tong Pilipinas.
Ikaw naman, Carl. Ikaw, sa high school ka lang, no? Grade 10 ka lang.
There are a lot of Filipino people which is suffering from poverty, discrimination, and such. I'll always be motivated to pursue my passion towards leadership so that I can help them to uplift and alleviate.
Wow, good to see that in a high school student. Gerard.
Pag pupunta kasi ako sa school, lagi kong nakikita yung mga homeless people, yung mga bata, hindi sila makapag-aral. I use my privilege to help other people and I want also to inspire them.
Way na lang din po namin na tumulong sa mga underprivileged nga na maging youth leader na kami po yung magiging voice nila.
As the elections draw near, particular issues matter more and more to them.
Women empowerment. Gusto ko din lumakas yung boses ng mga babae sa mga issues na kinakarap nila ngayon. I wanna help to end the rape culture talaga in the Philippines.
Very important. Carlo.
This 2019 national coming election, I'm still non-voter because I'm 15 years old. Still, I care because the youth has a huge contribution in electing the right and just leaders.
So, importante rin yun kasi even for non-voters, you can do something.
Yes.
Right? If you're not a voter, what can you do?
One thing that I can do is that to educate those voters. They should know the background and platforms of those those candidates so that they will know on who is really eager to serve our fellow Filipino people.
Para may real change,
Yes.
ano? Elisa, ikaw naman.
And quality education din po. And yung unang-una rin po is mga poverty din po kasi.
So ngayon nga, parating ang midterm election. Anong klaseng leaders ang hinahanap niyo?
Yung mga talagang pure yung heart nila mag-serve sa country, hindi para sa sarili nila. I really wanna see yung change na sinasabi nila.
What specific change you really want to see?
Mabawasan yung injustice sa ating bansa. Napakalaki ng educational injustice sa ating bansa. Madami sa ating kabataan hindi nakakapag-aral, hindi nila ma-afford yung quality na education sa atin. Tapos number 2 is yun, sa women. Ang pangit ng narrative na ginagawa ng administrasyong ito para sa mga kababaihan. Na-oppress sila.
Culture of misogyny.
Yeah,
Yes.
sobrang objectified sila.
Gusto ko lang po kasi sa mga candidates, gagawin po talaga nila kung ano po yung mga plataforma po nila.
What's an important platform for you?
Anything about environment po.
Ang ganda siguro if yung 24 na senators natin is from 24 different sectors din para each one is represented, each one is may tumututok sa needs. If not possible na ganun nga na may sector representation, at least siguro na baba sila sa grassroots to actually ask and discover what they need. Officials are just representatives of the people. They should stand for what the people want.
Carlo, ikaw naman, anong masasabi mo sa current leadership natin at ano naman ang hinahanap nyo?
The inclusiveness wherein yung leaders po ay who are really eager to listen to everyone regardless of their religion, race, and such so that we can know on what really to address and able to attain genuine change.
These young leaders would also like to see changes in Filipino voting culture.
It's not a secret naman na rampant talaga ang vote buying. So, ang nangyayari sa poor communities is nagre-register sila as much as possible members na family. So, ganun din yung amount na makukuha nila. Why would you refuse the money naman if it's for your food? So, we want to encourage din kasi if they vote for the right people, those people could address their needs.
I think people should really compute nga kung worthy ba yung pera na yun. Magkano lang yun sa ilang taon nilang pagsisilbi, pangungurakot sa bayan. So, sana mabago yun na yung mindset na pag nakuha ko tong pera, parang short-term happiness lang kasi yung pera na yun. Yun sa family. The old tradition kasi is like, pag binoto ng parents mo, dapat iboboto mo rin. Kailangan din magbago na may openness sana na iba yung naranasan nila and iba yung naranasan ng mga younger generations.
Carlo, alam ko hindi ka pa magbo-vote. Ano yung mga nakikita mo, naisip mo? At least when you vote, gusto mo ibaguhin.
Yung kung sino po yung sikat, isa yun na lang po yung binoboto. Kasi yun lang po yung kilala. Wherein wala na po silang time to discover yung other candidates na kung ano po ba yung platforms nila, ano po ba yung background nila.
So, kung may bias man, maging bias tayo for human rights, maging bias tayo for press freedom.
Choosing our government leaders can be a daunting and confusing process with so many choices. One of the most common reasons for failing to cast a ballot is a lack of information about the candidates and issues. Tatak Botante helps guide young voters, especially first-time ones. Here are a few tips.
Know your values. Yung values mo, ng families, ng organizations that you are a part of. From your values, tsaka mo i-compare sa mga candidates kung sinong candidates and party list ba yung mag-represent ng stands mo.
From my other organization, this is the 2030 Youth Force in the Philippines. We're advocating for the UN Sustainable Development Goals. It's a collection of 17 global goals. We're using the SDGs as a measurement para makita natin ano ba ang ginagawa ni candidate A sa no poverty, sa zero hunger, sa good health and well-being, sa quality education, etc. So it's 17. So imagine if all our voters have the capacity, aralin nila yung platforms at yung mga pronouncements sa mga candidates natin. So mas magiging matalino yung pagboto natin.
Tama.
In these times of rampant misinformation and so-called fake news, Danny and Jules have some tips to avoid falling victim to them.
make it a practice to read and verify the sources.
Ang nakakatakot kasi nga weaponized na ang social media. Pero tingin ko, matatapos siya kung titigil yung mga users na i-share to or i-consume tong content na to. We need to be smarter kung ano yung content na babasahin natin. And kung babasa man tayo ng content, huwag tayong sa isang source lang. We need to consider other sources as well. And then at the end of the day, we decide on our own.
We should always engage in conversation. So if you see this fake news online, you should inform them na this is not true. Check other more reliable sources.
Out of about 60 million voters registered for the 2019 elections, 2 million of them are voting for the first time, and this can be a daunting task. So Danny will show me the voter's manual that Tatak Botante created to help navigate through the voting process.
This is a manual that was developed in 2013, the first Tatak Botante. So it was updated in 2016, and our team will update it again this 2019
So work in
elections.
progress siya,
Yes.
no?
This manual is divided into 4 parts. First part, we have the basic information, who can vote, where you can vote. Second part would be political education. So included din dito yung details ng elections, time and the day, opening and the closing of the precincts. And then the website where you could find the precinct number. So that's in the COMELEC website. Included din sa COMELEC website are the list of candidates. To sum it up, in the whole Philippines will be electing more than 18,000 officials this elections. You can undervote, pero you can never overvote. So reminder lang na for party list, 1 lang. And then for senators, 12. Choose those na gusto mo even though hindi mag-12. When shading din, kailangan i-shade fully para hindi siya ma-reject ng ballot. It's very confidential, so we're not allowed to take photos.
No selfies.
No selfies with the yung ballot natin.
Every vote will make a difference. So when casting your vote, keep in mind this message from Tatak Botante.
Ngayong eleksyon, maging matalino, matalas at malaya.
Young people wield great power in sparking social change. These youth leaders share some thoughts on their role as citizens beyond voting.
After election, dapat patuloy nating sinusuri yung kandidato natin. Dapat i-held natin sila accountable sa mga promises na ginawa nila.
Dapat tayo rin mismo, tayo rin yung tumutulong at gumagawa para masuportahan yung kung sino man yung mauupo na mga kandidato.
I think it's important talaga yung to work together. Hindi lang porket sila yung naluklok dun sa posisyon na yun, sila lang yung kikilos. Tayo rin, may parte rin tayo sa pag-unlad ng bayan. Kaya dapat tayo rin nakikiisa tayo sa pag-angat ng bayan.
Such burning passion, idealism, and hope for a better country is refreshing. But even in their tender years, these youth leaders face many challenges in keeping the faith and their advocacies going.
There are times na parati talaga na ang hirap-hirap mahalin ng Pilipinas. Hindi natututo ang mga Pilipino. Pero at that time, at those trying moments na sobrang frustrating, doon ko lalo na-feel na yung need to help people. At times nga yun, sa mga trolls sa social media, you need to take a part in informing the misinformed.
From my end, this is my favorite quote from Dito Sarmiento, the EIC of Philippine Collegian before during the martial law time. Sabi niya, kung hindi tayo kikibo, sinong kikibo? Kung hindi tayo kikilo, sinong kikilos? Kung hindi ngayon, kailan ba? So, it's a responsibility for all students of state universities, not just UP, to give back. At pag sinasabi natin na mag-give back tayo, hindi tayo mag-give back sa government or sa mga nakaupo kasi kailangan din maging malinaw na hindi tayo pinag-aral ng mga nakaupo ngayon. Pinag-aral tayo ng taong bayan.
Jules has these wise words for government leaders, other future leaders, and voters on giving back and bringing about change for the better.
Kung may bias man, maging bias tayo for human rights, maging bias tayo for press freedom, maging bias tayo sa mas maayos na pamamahala mismo.
These young leaders are determined to keep the spirit of people power alive through the tools of their generation, using innovative ways to draw others into civic engagement.
It's very convenient right now because in just one click, you can mobilize people. Use social media for social good. In a time when social media is weaponized for propaganda, gamitin natin tong social media para makapag-unite at makapag-pakilos ng mga tao.
And when the officials or the admin still don't want to listen, the movements like Tatak Botante and other groups create networks. We join forces to make louder voices so para mas marinig nila kung ayaw man nilang pansinin.
They're steadfast in their convictions, speaking their minds to fight for what they believe in and give a voice to those who cannot speak. The youth have the potential to significantly impact the outcome of elections. Strategies that encourage their participation can help further their influence. Movements such as Tatak Botante are crucial in giving our future leaders a platform to be heard, to be part of a larger movement for the country, to bring forth great changes, and build up the sort of nation we all yearn for.
Welcome to our special program, The Filipino Votes, an election primer. I'm Pio Ontiveros.
Monday, May 13th is Decision Day. An estimated 63 million Filipinos are eligible to vote to fill more than 18,000 national and local positions, while the chief executive himself is not on the ballot as he is only halfway through his 6-year term. This democratic exercise is seen as a referendum on his performance. President Rodrigo Duterte enjoying high approval and trust ratings from a growing population most concerned with improving their lives, seeking a way out of their poverty, and gaining access to affordable health care. May 13th will be another opportunity for Filipinos to make their voices heard, to choose the leaders they will entrust with making a lasting positive impact on their lives. This is a CNN Philippines special presentation, The Filipino Votes, an election primer.
Monday's midterm elections will test the strength of our democracy. More than 60% of the Filipino population are eligible to vote. In this program, we'll take a closer look at this upcoming electoral process, from the voters to the candidates and major policy issues that will define the May 13th polls. Joining me now here in the studio, COMELEC spokesman, Director James Jimenez, the media director of the Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting, or PPCRV, Agnes Hervasio, and the Ana Tabunda of Pulse Asia Research. Welcome to the program. Also here with us, the spokesman for the Philippine National Police, Police Colonel Bernard Banac, and our resident political analyst, Dindo Manhit. Thank you to all of you and welcome to the show, everybody. Well, let's begin with this, of course. The safety and security of voters are very top, very big priority. Malacanang assuring us that the Philippine National Police and the military are ready. Colonel Banac, you are ready, of course.
Yes, Pia. The Philippine National Police is ready to provide security for the May 13 polls on Monday. And we have a task and deploying 149,000 PNP personnel all over the country.
Mm-hmm. When you say deploying 149,000 personnel, these are police who are assigned already in the various regions, and then they're just being fanned out to the different towns and provinces.
That's correct. That includes already the PNP personnel that are already assigned in the various police stations and provinces and regions across the country. And we have a standby force also that is ready to be deployed also anytime if there is a crisis or emergency. Or
standby force in the different regions or only here in Metro Manila? Is this what you call the regional mobile force in each region?
That's right. And in each region there will be a standby force, and even here at the national headquarters at Camp Crame there will be another standby force, and also from Camp Aguinaldo from the Armed Forces of the Philippines there will be also a standby force. So they'll be ready to be deployed anytime when there is a crisis or emergency or any untoward incident that may happen. But of course, we assure the Filipino people, the public, that the situation is under control right now. Even as we approach the last remaining days of the campaign period, the situation is pretty good. The peace and order is very good, and we maintain our high alert status. We are on full alert status.
Yeah,
so,
okay. And if anything goes wrong, you are, of course, like you said, on high alert, red alert status. So you can deal with any situation. When you talk about any situation, what is the worst case scenario we're thinking of?
Well, we're thinking of a terrorist attack, of course, that may happen also anytime. No? If these people would really sow terror and create trouble, we have to find a way to really prevent it.
Yeah.
And
okay.
of course, if such thing will happen, we are ready to respond to it. But of course, as much as possible, we would want to prevent any of this kind, any terrorist act that would disrupt the election.
Interesting that you say terrorist attack. What specific intel information do you have?
Well, in the areas where placed under the red category by the COMELEC, most of these places are in Mindanao, and where we find the terrorist groups like the Abu Sayyaf group, the Communist Terrorist New People's Army, and some elements of the breakaway of the BIFF.
Yeah.
So all these groups, threat groups, may pose some threat also to the coming polls, but just the same, we are ready to respond to any of these eventualities, and we hope to maintain this peace and order situation we have right now, even during the election day itself and beyond election day.
Again, I have to use the word interesting because number 2 on your list, the Communist Terrorist Group, right? And lately, in the last month or so, we've noticed that the PNP has been talking a lot in all the different regions about your interest and your focus on the NPAs.
Well, because we warned all the local chief executives who are running for election that they should not give in to the demands of the communist terrorists for protection to win, permit to campaign, permit to win. So they should not give in to these demands, because if they do, then they may be charged also for financing terrorism and violation of their code of ethical standards, being public officials. And even if they get re-elected, when charges, if evidence warrants and charges will be filed against them, even if they get elected, the cases would still be valid, and they may be removed from their posts.
Right. One last brief point for the PNP in the, not ARMM, the Bangsamoro Organic Law plebiscite in January. Napansin po natin just a few months ago na some policemen had to serve as as plebiscite
Boards of election tellers.
Boards of election tellers, no? And this was an emergency situation. So this time around, I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, meron pong training para sa ibang mga police to do just that, to step in kung kailangan?
Yes, we have prepared for this contingency. In fact, we have undergone, 1,404 of our personnel have undergone training as BET, and if there is a need for them to be deployed during the election day, then we are ready to deploy them. But as of now, we have not monitored any threat that may disrupt election on Monday, such that the teachers will not be able to come and perform their duties. But just the same, we are ready to deploy them, those 1,400 personnel who have been trained by COMELEC to act as BET should the need arise.
Okay. Well, speaking of training by COMELEC, among the groups that get trained by COMELEC and help COMELEC in the election process is, of course, the PPCRV. One of our guests is from there, and I'm very sorry I introduced you as Agnes Hervacio, but we've been corrected. Kanina na nga sinabi that it is Maribel Buenoobra who is guesting today. So let's speak first. We're going to go back to the PNP and other security matters in just a bit, but let's move on first. A key indicator of voters' interest in Monday's midterm elections is the number of people who signed up during the registration period. Now, more than 2.5 million registered last year. The COMELEC says that is about 1 million more than they expected. Now, that brings the total number of registered voters to about 63 million. Who are they, and what are they looking for in our leaders? What are the issues they want addressed? Let's begin first with James Jimenez. So, James, 63 million voters. Give us a breakdown in terms of Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, ages, gender, etc.
As far as ages are concerned, you're looking at about a third of them being the youth up to the age of 30. So that's about 22 million. There you go. Now, that makes them a very significant voting bloc. Of course, the biggest bloc is still the sort of middle-aged adults.
Pero age 60 and above, 9.1 million, ano?
Marami din sila.
Oo,
Yeah,
mga senior citizens.
senior citizens, which is why it's very important that a lot of the features of the elections now have to do with giving them access to the voting precincts. You're also looking at a very, very young voting population, so we figure that that will be a factor in determining the outcomes.
Yeah, yung 2.5 million new voters, yan lahat mga bata yan. Ganun ba?
Karamihan dyan, bata.
Karamihan, oo.
The reason for that is because we had several successive SK registrations, so a lot of them sort of got enveloped into the system.
Yeah.
So now they're part of the regular voting force, and that makes them a very significant.
Yeah. Oo. Well, let's make a correction here because a lot of people say the youngest generation, the millennials, no. So these are the kids born from hindi na kids, born 1977 to 1996. But there is a younger generation. They call them the plurals, born 1997 hanggang 2014.
Oh, those are called plurals?
Yeah, they're called plurals, or there's another term, escapes me at the moment. But so 1997 to 2014, yun yung 22 years old.
Yes.
No, for those born in 97, and some of them mga first-time voters.
A lot of them are first-time voters. Yes.
Okay.
And that's true. And the level of interest that we see among these voters is very high. For the most part, we see it in the way they engaged in the way they engage in public discussions about their choices, about what's important to them, and we believe that will translate to actual turnout during the elections.
Yeah. Well, a part of the number of voters are those who are registered abroad, yung mga overseas absentee voting.
That's why you have a 63 million vote count. Because locally, you're looking at about 61 million voters in the Philippines. And so you have an additional about 2 million, more or less, overseas.
Okay.
And these are, for the most part, overseas workers, OFWs.
So of the 2M overseas absentee voters, do we already have an idea how many of them voted?
No, we're still in the middle of the spike that happens during the last few weeks of voting. But it looks like the turnout is good in a lot of places. We have a lot of voters coming in from the Middle East, as always, and as expected, Hong Kong, of course, is one of the front runners.
What explains this, the spike in the turnout? In the last election, medyo mataas din yung turnout. Ano?
Yes.
Is it because of social media? There are more people aware, mas kumakalat ang info?
Well, I think it's really about about how the candidates have, or the political personalities in the Philippines have captured the imagination of the voters, mobilizing them essentially. Social media is an amplifier. It's not a source of that sort of inspiration. It's simply an amplifier. But again, ultimately, it'll be the candidates and the political personalities here. The spike now is because it's almost over. I mean, the voting period is almost over. We see that regularly. But when we're talking about the voter turnouts, yes, that has been slowly increasing as well.
Okay. Yeah, well, we were showing the numbers already, but let's just do a very quick review. So when we break them down by gender, for example, based on the 61 plus million voters, like you said earlier, no, James, so we haven't yet included yung overseas absentee. 51% female, 31...
male. 31 million female, yeah.
31 million female, or 51%. Male voters account for 48%, or just about 30 million. Does this figure in any way, in the way?
Well, it does in a negative way because there are more female voters. In terms of voter turnout, females are more likely to vote, and yet there are more male elected officials. So I guess in that respect, this is very, very interesting. There are still more male candidates than female, and so I guess that's the reason why there are more male winners. But yes, definitely females are, at least the females are a significant bit more numerous in terms of turnouts than the men.
Okay, well, let's speak to Dean Damanhit here, our political analyst, and Ana Tubunda of Pulse Asia. What do these numbers mean to us when we talk about more female voters than male voters, and the ages, or the different age groups of our voters, and all these numbers? What do they mean to us, and what do they tell us about the elections? Anna, Tabunda, Pulse Asia.
Well, the fact that there are more females and that their turnout is higher than that of males, then that will mean that the candidates will have to try to relate to them by covering their issues. That's one.
Covering their issues and what? Veering away from
well,
statements that could alienate women. Ganun ba?
Yes. Maybe something like that. But actually, if you ask them what issues they really want to be addressed, it's irrespective of gender. So I guess even the general messages about poverty, jobs, pay, okay, that bringing down inflation, addressing trade law, that will appeal to the women as well as the men. It's just a question of you don't antagonize them unduly.
Yeah, okay. Well, talk to us about the different age groups.
Well, the different age groups, yes. As James had said, it's really the middle age groups who tend to turn out more than the younger age groups. It seems that first of all, the percentage of the 18 to 24 of the total voters is lower than their percentage in the adult population, indicating they don't even register normally at that age. Some of them start registering age 25, okay, when they probably have started families and are more interested on the impact on them of political developments. So they don't come out, they don't turn up as much as the older groups. Now, the senior citizens, they tend to be, they're smaller, okay? The biggest groups are your 35 to 44 and 45 to 54.
Really?
Senior
Okay.
citizens,
Yeah.
they can be quite dedicated in coming. It's almost like they want to leave a legacy. So they come as much as they can. They try and go. You do see them turning up.
Yeah.
More than the 18 to 24.
All right, we'll have to go to a very brief break. When we come back, we're going to speak to Dindo Manhit, our political analyst. You're watching another CNN Philippines special presentation. When we return, a closer look at the issues Filipinos care deeply about. Stay with us. Halfway through the term of President Rodrigo Duterte, Filipino voters will head to the polls to fill more than 18,000 national and local positions. What are the issues weighing heavily on the minds of the voters? We are back with our guests, PNP spokesperson Colonel Bernard Banac, our resident political analyst Dindo Manhit, COMELEC spokesperson Director James Jimenez, Maribel Buenaobra of the Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting, or PPCRV, and Ana Tabunda, Research Director for Pulse Asia. So, Dindo, before that, a couple of surveys over the last 6 months say Filipinos are most concerned about reducing poverty and improving healthcare. Based on a recent report by the Philippine Statistics Authority, the number of poor Filipinos declined in the first half of 2018. Dindo, we've been going through many different surveys in the last senatorial debate, the forums and different interviews, pinag-uusapan palagi poverty, healthcare, even issues about how voters feel about corruption. So what are the top issues, top of mind for voters when they go to the polls on Monday?
It's good to go back to some of the data that Pulse Asia shared. They call it personal concerns, where healthcare is top. And second to that is finishing school, which is basically education. So basic, what you call basic needs. And when you shift to urgent national concerns, then you cross very economic issues to the people. They speak of inflation, that means presyo ng bilihin, which was a big issue for the government last year. But nandiyan din yung the idea of poverty and jobs. That means livelihood to our people. So at the end of the day, these are issues that are, you'd say, gut issues to our voters, which is at nearly 62 million or 63 million if we will add overseas voters. So their votes might be based on what they concern in their day-to-day living. And that's the reality of every election. I always would argue that campaigns is all about voters. That means voter-centered. It's about understanding what they need, what their concerns are. And earlier, you were breaking it down with Director Jimenez, the idea of demographics. You have to understand who these voters are by trying to understand their age groupings, where the votes will come from. Because at the end of the day, it's a mistake to approach any election campaign, especially national, from a term of, I'll use the term, shotgun approach. It has to be targeted. Some even do micro-targeting. It's breaking down the demographics. And so you'd know where your votes will come from. But critical to that really is understanding the gut issues of your voters. So when you communicate to them, you have to address what their concerns are and why will they vote for you at a local level, why will they vote for you at the national level, as a legislator, as a senator. So those are things that candidates should consider. There are traditionalists who still view themselves as, oh, I'm the candidate, I believe I'm a good person, I sell myself. That's very old school, and that doesn't work anymore. Because at the end of the day, who cares if you consider yourself good if the voters don't even understand what you're talking about or you don't address their issue? So that's the challenge to any candidate or any campaign. That's why I always say that you have to start with understanding the demographics, the geographic area, understanding the issues and concerns of these voters. Then you build a campaign around how do you sell yourself as somebody that deserves their vote. In this case, you're fighting. It's easy to fight a group of candidates when you're fighting for 12 slots. It's harder when it's presidential, when it's a one-on-one or a vice presidential.
But in this election, even if we say those are the issues, no, poverty, healthcare, even corruption. Pero yung, for example, Ocho Diretso, no, the opposition slate, what they've been doing is, for example, attacking President Duterte and his allies. So are they missing the point? Because if you're saying that
I think they're missing a point.
So,
when you base your campaign and your opponent is President Duterte, who's not a candidate, that for me is the big step in missing the point. Second is, you're attacking a candidate that, according to Pulse Asia, is 87% approval rating. Am I right? Do I remember it right?
Doing very well.
And you're attacking the number one issue, which is war on drugs, which is still relatively on that same number.
Which surveys say, by the way, is quite popular.
But that's what I'm saying.
Ang gusto lang ng tao buhayin nyo lang yung
That's a big difference.
babalik tayo doon mamaya, Colonel Banak.
But still, that's what I'm saying. When you build the campaign believing this is what the people want, instead of understanding what the people want, then you tend to lose out. And you see the results, tracking it.
But what about what the people need? See, that's the problem.
That's not the role of...
Down that road lies populism.
That's not election. That's education. I'm just saying, if that's what you want, Director Jimenez, that's 90 days does not give you that. It's an educational system. And there's no electoral system that will give you more than 90 days. So you cannot solve that with election. I'm a professor of political science, and I was a professor spending time on public policy. But I will not tell anyone who asks my advice that use this as a time to advocate your policy. You win first, then you build on your advocacy. Or you have 3 years to prepare for this campaign, build on that. But to use the 90 days to build on a campaign which the public doesn't want. Because at the end of the day, we are a democracy. And who are we to dictate on what the voters want? You have to respect also what the voters want.
Well, let's speak to Maribel Bueno-Obra of PPCRV. Yung mga sinasabing issues ni Dindo, no? As PPCRV Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting, yung mga kasama nyo sa parokya, ang nakakausap ng PPCRV, no? Are these the issues for them?
I would agree with what Professor Manhit mentioned, as well as Ana Tabunda, no? When we go around the country conducting voters education fora or focus group discussions, those are the very issues that confront the voters. But when we do our voters education, we find out that it's the middle group, as mentioned by Ms. Ana Tabunda, that focus on the bread and butter issues, poverty, economics, healthcare. The 2.5% first-time vote, 2.5 million first-time voters and the 30% youth voters are the more idealistic one. So when we conduct, for example, voters education, we focus on that, and because 2019 is the year of the youth, we target the youth, which will be, hopefully, not jaded, not cynical, and willing to make a change for the country.
Okay. All right, we need to go to a very brief break. This is the Filipino Votes, an election primer. Coming up, we dissect the highly competitive Senate race, 62 candidates in all fighting for just 12 seats. More about these aspirants and what's making them appeal or not appeal to the voting public when we return. You're watching CNN Philippines. More than 18,000 seats will be contested in Monday's May 13th midterm elections. 62 candidates competing for just 12 Senate seats. 7 are re-electionists who are rating high in the surveys over the past several months. Tamang-tama, we were talking about yung mga senatorial and how they're attacking the campaign. Anna Tabunda of Pulse Asia, before anything else, you just finished a survey yesterday, right? Which is coming out
2 days before Election Day.
2 days before Election Day, May 11.
We hope to release, yes.
Yeah, and there's no way that you can tell us right now. Just a sneak peek of.
I haven't seen it. They're still encoding it.
Okay, pero if we look at this, we're showing it now, yung April 10 to 14, and we all know what's happened. It's either the hugpong ng pagbabago and or candidates allied with President Duterte or who have been endorsed by him or by the PDP Laban are clearly within the winning range, within the 1 to 12 ranks. And you have the Ocho Diretso, well, falling, falling and falling, no? Or at the bottom rung of these 11 to 12, 13, 14 even. Hindi ba? Bam Aquino is right now within the 1 to 12, but you have Mar Rojas a little bit lower.
No, we have Bam Aquino just outside 1 to 12. But I think we have to remember that each time we have an election, the administration gets to pick those who are already likely to win. They get invited to join the coalition. So it's, I think it's, we have to bear that in mind, that of course they will...
Of course they will want to pick someone who has a
big chance of winning, so they can claim that their slate, most of them got in.
But the interesting example there is Bongo. When he started out, he was like, what?
Number 30 plus.
30 plus.
Even in Mindanao, he was down there.
Yeah, and now he's way up there because of President Duterte.
Not just. You have to remember he spent, what, 420 million, and it wasn't even campaign period yet. That kind of money, the other candidates spent that during the election campaign. So it was completely different. And it's not government money. That's the another interesting part of it.
Okay. So we are, like you said, expecting a survey to come out May 11, Saturday. By then, of course, in a way, it's too late for many of the candidates.
We think the candidates ought to know how they did during the last leg of the campaign for future campaigns. Because our last survey was taken about a month before Election Day. That's too far. So that they can get some lessons of what
for
did
the
they
next
do
elections
wrong.
now.
What did they do wrong? What did they do right?
We
think we also owe it to the people that they have some idea. Because we did have quite a shift between our March and our April survey, because we shifted to the use of ballots in April, and we saw some really big drops across.
When you say ballots, we're talking about the
these are facsimiles or copies
of the actual ballots that show a listing of the 62 names.
62 names is the way it appears in the COMELEC ballot, as well as the party list names, 134 of them.
Okay, Dindo, your take on the latest Pulse Asia survey. And, I mean, of course, I know it's April 10 to 14, no? Pero may palabas na sa May 11. Sa palagay mo, mas marami pang iiyak paglabas?
Of course, I always say that the surveys are snapshot of voter behavior at that moment. So, and also the possibility that some advertisements or political advertisements captured you at that moment, or some news items captured your interest at that moment. So that's why in campaigns, I always say that there's just one important day, which is actual election day. How your campaign to sell yourself, either through the use of television and other medium, and also how your networks, be it political, be it volunteer networks, try to deliver as much vote as possible as you could get. So candidates normally, don't, no matter how they are critical to Pulse Asia, I think they're all subscribed to Pulse Asia or to the other one, SWS, because they all like to have a way to understand where they are. But officially, nobody will, if you're not doing well, nobody will say that I'm supportive of this data. But it helps them tell them where they are, because I think when we saw some candidates going down, you see them spending more on television advertising, or if you will use Secretary Bongo as an example, that heavy spending on January was really unique in this campaign because...
Or maybe nakatulong kasi 2 beses na siya nagtanggal ng shirt niya eh.
I promise you, that kind of news does not even register on the voters. It's an irritant for some, maybe. But, you know, to have 400 million worth of TV spots. If you have given Ocho Derecho maybe 50 million each spot, that kind of resources, that would have been different
Really?
also. Yeah.
Really?
Because
Even with,
Because you cannot...
So it's just a matter of exposure on TV.
But you might say the right message. In this case,
paano kung hindi naman maganda yung dating mo, di ba?
But Secretary Bongo is with an 87% approval rating president in his TV ads. So that boosts that candidacy also. So what I'm just saying, that kind of amount of money is very strong. I think even incumbent senators will have a hard time raising those kind of money. So it elevated really a different campaign, but it also shows the power of television. And as Director Jimenez earlier said, social media simply amplifies these things because TV reaches a broader market. So what we're seeing now is maybe the whatever Pulse Asia comes out with the next few days. That's at least a week, Doctor. A month difference, so or a few weeks. So depending on who spent most or who campaigned harder through different modes, might reflect an improvement. Some who is nauubusan na ng resources might, because some, I've seen that in some, they built a campaign but towards the end not able to sustain it. But the most important is this week.
Okay. Well, there's someone here in the top 12 who's been there for quite a long time. It's Bato de la Rosa, and I wanted to ask Colonel Banak, how is Bato faring among the PNP personnel? Yung mga PNP ba na makakaboto o nakaboto dun sa absentee voting or makakaboto sa Monday, are they going to be voting for him?
Well, General Ronald Bato de la Rosa was a former chief PNP, and he remains popular among PNP personnel. He served in a way that really inspired PNP personnel in fighting criminality and illegal drugs. And this could be his advantage because he served in the PNP and is quite popular among the dependents of PNP personnel and even the AFP also.
PNP lang ba, AFP? Because we've had several PMA Philippine Military Academy graduates who have done very well in elections. There's Ping Lacson, there's Greg Onasan. Well, of course, Gary Alejano. We're not sure if he'll make it this year.
That's right. He has a good following, even in the Armed Forces of the Philippines, where he used to be a military officer before he served in the PNP or the Philippine Constabulary.
So what is it? What is it about Bato de la Rosa, Ping Lacson, Greg Onasan? I mean, people don't see them as PMA cadets. No, is it what, the uniform? Why do they get elected?
Peace and order continues to be an important concern of the public. Maybe not top, but peace and order. But if you will separate Secretary Ping and maybe General Bato, Secretary Honasan had a different, Senator Trillanes had a different following.
Rebelde.
And that's why you either like him or love him. That's why they've never really reached top 10.
And well, maybe
they're always 11, 12, because just enough. But with Secretary...
I guess it helped kasi, telegenic, they project well, no?
Yeah, of course, not anyone who maybe wears a uniform can make it. People have forgotten, for example, Senator Biason. His image as the one defending the coup d'etat.
Or defending the Cory Aquino government.
Defending against the coup d'etat was, I think, projected him differently to the Cory Aquino followers. While on the other hand, at the same election, they were voting
for Greg Onasan.
So, but that's the nature of elections. And in the case of Senator Ping Lacson, his success as an anti-crime czar, then chief PNP.
And very close to the president at the time.
Estrada at the time, propelled him in 2001. And I think The case of General Bato de la Rosa, that's a reality that with a top percentage of Filipinos favoring the war on drugs, I think is helping General Bato to be a possible senator.
Okay, still to come, why candidates are going all out in Cebu. They're holding rallies, they're going door to door, and having listening tours to win the hearts and minds of Cebuanos. More after this short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Historically, midterm elections have lower turnouts than presidential elections, which are held every 6 years. In the last 3 elections, voter turnout was at around 78%. In 2016, we saw about 84% of registered voters trooping to the polls. That's about 40 million Filipinos. In that same election year, the highest number of overseas Filipino workers on record cast their ballots. 2013, 77% of voters made their voices heard, while 74% turned up in the 2010 elections. Meanwhile, provinces in the Visayas have shown a strong voter turnout in the last 2 midterm elections. Cebu remains the #1 vote-rich province with more than 3 million registered voters. And it's no surprise, candidates are always there courting the voting public in the province. So let's talk about Cebu. Ana Tabunda, Pulse Asia, and Dindo Manhit, political analyst. What do we need to know about Cebu? Not just for the candidates, but for the voters as well.
Well, as you have said, it's vote-rich, and I suppose they're trying to get at Cebu because it's the heart of the Visayan region. But I think I expect a high turnout in Mindanao. This compared to Visayas and Balance, Luzon, and NCR, because Mindanao is really gung-ho about this administration, this being since we have a Mindanaoan president, and it's showing when we ask them about level of interest in the elections. Truly interested, it's in the high 80s in Mindanao, it's in the low 70s in Visayas and Balance, Luzon, and it's in the 60s level in NCR. Truly interested.
Okay, and that's what's going to propel President Duterte's candidates, ganun ba?
It's going to help, but there's a problem there. When we did the ballot, it was Mindanao that had the highest drop in average number of candidates voted. I think they're having difficulty. We went from 50 names in the senatorial list in 2016 to 62. It added 4 rows, and I think the font just crossed a threshold that's difficult for them to read those little fonts. They're not really, many of our people don't really read much, especially since you can get the news over TV, over radio. So it's difficult for them. They were naming from an average of 11 before, they suddenly, or 10, they went down to 7. That's Mindanao.
Okay, so and what we're saying is that this could be the fill-out, what we call the fill-out rate.
Yes, that's a fill-out rate. It dropped most dramatically in Mindanao, where we have a large percentage of the Class E.
Okay, so Director Jimenez, sobra ata yung tinatanggap niyo senatorial candidates.
I'm more concerned.
I'm sure that's not what Ana Tabunda meant.
I'm more concerned about the claim that the fonts are too small, because number one, they're optimized optically, and
what do you mean by that? Optimized optically?
They're spaced so that they're easy to read, and their vertical sizes are not very far off from where they were before. In fact, it's the ballot length that adjusts, not the text. So I don't know that that's exactly the case. It could be that there are relatively more unknowns now. So maybe that has an effect. But again, from the strictly COMELEC point of view, I would have to say that it's probably not the font sizes.
Not the font sizes. Could it be because, why is the COMELEC accepting 62 candidates?
Well, that's really not up to us. I mean,
Like you said, no, relatively unknown yung iba.
right. But then
Sino
again,
yan?
hindi yan sila, you wouldn't call them nuisance candidates. You wouldn't call them unqualified. You would simply call them unknowns. And that's fair. But unfortunately, the way the elections are structured, I guess now, being an unknown might actually be a liability. And with so few of the 62 actually commandeering the air all around them, then yes, you will see a drop-off in the fill-out. Because people tend to vote for the ones that they like. The ability of Filipinos to cross party lines seems to have been diminished, perhaps irreparably. But that's the problem. See, when you're voting for slates that are incomplete, or for voting for slates that contain, not all of the people that you love, then people do tend to just not vote anymore.
Okay, and well, there's no law that limits the number of senatorial candidates, no? Pero hindi naman siguro, like, for example, in 2022, how many senatorial candidates will we have then? Like 70? Aabot ba tayo sa 70? 100?
I'm more concerned about the presidential candidates then.
What are you saying? 10?
It wasn't really that many
In our forward planning, that's 10 is not a number that we are surprised by.
Yeah, oo.
We are in fact
we've had that
more
number.
than 10.
Well, Filipinos love elections, no? It's like parang sabong lang yan eh. But anyway, well, I wanted to talk briefly about this. Dahil nababanggit naman you have President Duterte endorsing candidates, and sometimes in the local election, di ba? Yung magkakaribal pa, tinaas yung kamay ng isa, tinaas din yung kamay ng isa, halimbawa, no? But I wanted to ask about this because, like, for example, no, in 1987, you had Cory Aquino, 22 of her 24 bets, making it to the Senate. But that's also because of the euphoria, hindi ba, of the February Revolution. And then you had Gloria Arroyo. What was it? A dismal Dindo? 2 out of 12?
No, unique with Gloria Macapagal Arroyo was she was an unpopular president.
Yeah, and this was the 2004 election, no?
2007.
The 2007, right. Okay, so after the 2004, you had the Hello Garci controversy. So, ang daming challenges along the way, including Magda Law.
People were avoiding being her candidate.
Okay.
at that time.
Yeah, okay.
And in 2013, you have to remember, the slate of President Aquino was also successful. Some of the members of the slate are named Senator Cayetano, Senator Pimentel, members of basically PPDP Laban and Hugpo now. A lot of these names that we see in Hugpo were candidates of President Aquino, who was a popular president also in 2013.
Yeah, okay. But do presidential endorsements work better in senatorial elections ba? Or sa presidential? Kasi when you look at it, for example, Cory endorsed FVR in 92, panalo. But then, of course, that's because FVR was popular also. No?
No, but FVR just got 24%.
24% minority 23%, di ba?
After
minority
1 month
president.
counting.
Yeah.
You asked Miriam Defensor.
Kasi manual kasi tayo noon.
Manual.
Ako, naalala ko tuloy Sulu Hotel. But anyway, okay.
That's
And then, so 92. Pero 98, when FVR endorsed Rene de Villa, talo.
Joe de Venecia.
Sorry, Joe de Venecia. Oo.
It's, I think even FVR, people even got confused who the candidate of Cory Aquino, because there was also Speaker Mitra, who was initially perceived to be the candidate, and it was...
Well, he was supposed to be... Well, he was the administration candidate.
Candidate, yeah, except not the Cory Aquino. So I think it's hard, at the end of the day, as I've said, when it's presidential, it's one-on-one. It's about you being better than the other candidate. So a popular president might help you, but in the case of Cory Aquino at the time, of course, things were not also doing well in their presidents at that time. This was the massive brownouts.
Right, the power crisis.
There are
Kandila, araw-araw.
Yeah, so you're carrying that burden.
Yeah.
That's why it was a small lead for her endorsed candidate. But with President Fidel V. Ramos, he might be a popular candidate, but not popular enough to carry a weak candidate, which polls showed it at that time already, Joe De Venecia.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. He had to choose pala between Joe De Venecia and Rene De Villa. Pinili si JB
There were
Vitalo
also
pa rin,
issues
oo.
about Ramos towards the end of his administration.
Right,
Because
right.
there
The
is-
centennial. Oo.
Crisis,
the power PPP arrangements.
purchase agreement.
It's true of every president, so it's difficult for a president to endorse.
Yeah, okay. But
Just
today,
like a Mama
President...
Sapano for
For Noynoy Aquino.
Yeah.
Oo. But today, you have an extremely popular president.
Because it's midterm.
It's still midterm, yeah.
Oo. But not all presidents are very popular at midterm, hindi ba?
Well, Arroyo.
Arroyo.
Gloria, and then...
Was never popular from...
Yeah, okay. So what are we saying here? That we expect na his candidates will do very well?
Well,
Ano ba yun?
we have to remember the administration gets to choose those who are likely to win in the first place. The president, this particular president, has good endorsement power because we saw him endorse two non-elected, previously unknown outside Mindanao candidates, and that's Bongo and Bato. That's the strength of his endorsement power. You see it there. Normally, the people are also looking for a match between the endorser and the endorsee, which is why Francis Tolentino is not doing as well as these two are. I think the people have a hard time seeing the connection as well as they can see it for Bongo or Bato.
But between Bato and Bongo, Bato started relatively better.
Yeah.
Kasi kilala siya, popular
He was
na
better
siya.
known, yes.
Diba? I mean, you know, he's a
He had a
character.
mascot.
Oh, he had a mascot and people liked him. You know, I mean, ang daming humingi ng picture niya. Minsan more than President Duterte, di ba?
But he stepped down a year before. As PNP chief, he lost the attention. He went into
Bilibid.
head the Bilibid. So I think that 1 year affected. Then there was that failed movie. You have to accept that also. That
I think
when you have that misstep like that, it carries a certain burden temporarily.
I think the mistake there was they asked the people to pay for entrance. They should have just aired it on a national network, right?
Or
for free.
Facebook, for free. Social media, okay. Well, we need to move on. Philippine National Police has identified 701 election hotspots for Monday's midterm elections. The region with the highest number of hotspots is the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region. So, Colonel Banak, kanina sinabi niyo na nga no, na you're prepared, high alert status, red alert, you have regional mobile forces on standby,
Right.
etc. You did say, though, that there could be untoward incidents, no?
Right.
When we talk about hotspots, basically, it's not just the terrorist groups, but we're also talking about yung mga private armed groups, yung mga armado ng mga politiko, ng mga kandidato.
Yes, when we talk about the hotspot under the red category, categorized under the red category, this means that these places have the potential to have incidents of violence coming from threat groups like the Abu Sayyaf group, the communist terrorist NPAs, and breakaway groups like the BIFF. And of course, we add to that the intense political rivalry coming from the parties involved, the candidates, and the incidents that took place in the last two elections, like 2016 and 2013. So all these lumped together, we consider the places as under this category of a red category, and therefore hotspots.
Okay, but you have been able to disarm these groups, right?
Yes.
Or do they still have firearms in their possession?
Yes, we did the campaign.
They still have
against-
firearms in their possession?
We suspect that they still have loose firearms. The private, we're still looking at 34 suspected private armed groups in these areas, and we have been successful in our campaign against loose firearms because of our intensified campaign on implementing the gun ban, of course. And in fact, we have already confiscated around 4,000 plus of assorted firearms.
Yeah, you refer to the election gun ban, meaning kahit na may license, kahit may lisensya ka at kahit may permit to carry o PTC ka, walang kwenta yan kung wala kang
You're not
exception.
allowed to
no?
carry that outside your residence. You have to place that inside your vault, or otherwise you have to surrender it for custody.
Pero bakit meron pa kayo na-aresto na lumalabag doon sa election gun ban? Hindi nila alam?
Well, they know there is a gun ban, but still they take chances. They may be escorting a VIP or a businessman or a politician.
Yeah, or some of them are not even armed escorts of these VIPs or politicians or candidates, hindi ba? Some of them are ordinary citizens.
That's right. And even the implementation of search warrants against suspected private armed groups and even elected government officials who have been suspected hiding contraband and loose firearms, we have been very successful in this. In fact, we have confiscated a lot of firearms against elected government officials.
Yeah, oo. Yung mga checkpoints nyo in these hotspots, in these very closely monitored areas, still follow, of course, the rules for checkpoints, right?
That's correct. We have to be very courteous, and we have to follow the rules implementing the checkpoint. Like, we only do a visual search. We're not supposed to order everybody to come out and step down.
Unless the driver and the passengers of the vehicle choose to open, for example, the glove compartment,
they
the
voluntary
door,
to step out of the car, and that's okay. But they don't have to. They can stay inside the car, and then we just do a visual search.
Do we need to open the lights?
Oh, it helps, of course.
It helps.
Of course, we need to see the people inside, of course. We do a visual search, especially at night.
Okay, we need to go to a very brief break. We're going to be right back. Stay with us. Polls open as early as 6 in the morning, Monday, May 13th. Filipinos will vote in midterm elections. Final words now from our guests, Ana Tabunda of Pulse Asia.
Just like everybody else, I'd like to encourage our people to go out and vote so that their preferences will be registered.
And fill out those 12 ovals.
Fill out the slots that they want to fill out.
Okay. And May 11, Pulse Asia, May 11 ng gabi, Saturday.
We're targeting the evening
target.
news.
Wow, everybody's going to be waiting for that. Okay, Dindo Manhit.
Of course, democracy is very important. Our democracy is alive. We've seen 90 days of actual campaigning. And for the candidates in their campaign, last few days, to transform their popularity into actual votes. Surveys doesn't really reflect it if it's not voted and counted. So critical next few days for the different campaigns all over the country.
And for the next election, for those who don't make it.
It could be a good practice for them.
Practice. Colonel Banak of the PNP.
Thank you very much. We call on the public, we urge them to be very vigilant and alert and report to the police any untoward incident or any concern that they may encounter during the election day. And we are there to serve them, to help them, and then assist them. If there's any concern at the polling place, we will bring them to the police station so that order will be restored at the polling places. So we maintain order in the polling
At
places.
sumunod siyempre sa batas, including the
follow
election gun ban,
law.
many others. Okay. PPCRV Maribel Buenaobra.
Yes, we would like to encourage the voters to go out and vote, maging mapanuri sa kanilang mga kandidato, karakter, kakayahan, katapatan. We are deploying about 300,000 volunteers on election day, but we still need volunteer encoders at the command center. We're launching it tomorrow, so if you want to volunteer, come and visit
This
us.
is in Popayos.
This is in Popayos,
Manila.
yes.
All right, so pwede pa. Is there a number that people can call if they want to volunteer there?
Yes, there's a number that they can call, 536-5819.
536-5819. And finally, COMELEC spokesman James Jimenez.
Yes, very important for the voters. Do not overvote. Vote only for the required number of slots for every race. And relative to the impending release of the survey, please remember, make up your own mind. The surveys offer a snapshot of who's popular at that moment, but it's not really the sole decider of who you should vote for. Ultimately, that choice is yours.
At pwede magdala ng kodigo.
Pwede magdala ng kodigo.
Whether handwritten, print
Or sample
out,
ballot or whatever.
The only thing you
Pwede yan.
cannot do, James, a reminder,
Is take a picture of your filled up ballot.
so forget your selfies. So don't bring your smartphone, ganun ba? All right, thank you very much to our guests tonight, Ana Tabunda of Pulse Asia, Dito Manhit, political analyst, Colonel Bernard Banak of the Philippine National Police, spokesman Maribel Buenaobra of the Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting, PPCRV, and James Jimenez, spokesman for the COMELEC. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us, and thank you for watching the Filipino Votes, an election primer. I'm Pio Ontiveros. This is CNN Philippines.
So if you have accountability, transparency, and inclusiveness, lalabas na meron tayong national public confidence in an election. Actually, yung elections, democracy actually, ang broad ng spectrum ng democracy. Elections is just one act of a democracy. So bilang mga tao, may power talaga tayo. Gusto sana natin ay yung will of the people. And sa election talaga sana yung perfect opportunity for people to express their will. Ako po si Carlo Gino G. Africa. Ako po former National Secretariat Head ng Lente. Ngayon po consultant po ako ng Lente sa iba-ibang mga projects niya po. Nung college pa lang, nagvo-volunteer na ako sa iba't ibang orgs. But nung law school ako, nagkataon may kaibigan ako na gustong mag-volunteer sa Lente, sa elections. And ako naman, naisip ko maganda yung Lente kasi elections nga. Alam ko importante yung elections. So sumama ako sa kanya. And from there, dun talaga ako tuloy-tuloy na pumasok at masaging active sa Lente mismo. May isang time noong 2016, umikot kami for voter education sa Infanta, Quezon. Nag-voter education kami doon. And one of the most striking things I've heard throughout my volunteer experience is sinabi ng isang matanda doon. Sabi niya sa akin, yung voter education na ginagawa nyo, okay yan, maganda yan. Pero sa totoo lang po, wala siyang kwenta. Kasi if titingnan nyo naman yung balota, pare-pareho lang naman tumatakbo eh. At kung sino gusto ni Mayor manalo, siya yung mananalo. Maintindihan mo kung bakit may hopelessness yung bawat citizen natin. Kasi every year, pare-pareho na lang tumatakbo. Every year, palagi na lang pare-pareho yung mga resulta natin. And for you to compete sa elections, isipin mo kailangan ko mag-vote buying. Kasi nag-vote buying silang lahat eh. Kailangan ko malaki mag-spend. Kasi lahat sila ang laki rin ng ginagastos. Baka sa iba pa, kailangan ko mag-hire pa ng mga may baril, may armas. Kasi lahat sila may armas rin. Kaya ang hirap talaga tumakbo kasi mataas yung barrier of entry. And because of that process, because of that cycle, nagiging pare-pareho na talaga yung mga napapresenta natin sa people na candidates natin. Blame mo bang ating mga voters kung pareho lang binovote nila? Kaya hindi kami niniwala sa bobotante. Hindi kami niniwala na ang ating mga voters na bobo sila. Kasi wala silang option, wala silang choice. Pare-pareho lang yung magiging option nila. Ibigyan mo sila ng alternative choice na talagang alam nilang tutulong sa kanila, na alam nila na magiging mabuti para sa kanilang bayan, boboto rin nila to. If meron tayong election na may accountability, transparency, and inclusiveness, magkakaroon tayo ng public confidence sa elections natin. Yun talaga yung habol ni Lente bilang isang organisasyon. It's very difficult for you to win an election in the Philippines, lalo na sa local communities. But, kami sa Lente mismo, non-partisan si Lente when it comes to candidates. But as an election volunteer and as part of the election process, you see pockets of change in different areas of the country. May mga tao tumatakbo, kahit barangay kagawad lang, or kahit city councilor lang, nananalo sila na hindi kailangan mag-vote by. Nananalo sila sa pagbigay lang na maayos sa plataforma, nananalo sila sa pagkausap sa bayan mismo. At pag makita yun ng tao na palagi kang nandun ka talaga para kausapin ng taong bayan, para tanungin ano ba talagang problema nila, para magpresenta ng tamang solusyon, makita yun ng tao, and pag election time, naboboto ka naman. So, may mga small pockets of change nga around our country. Ang question lang is, kaya ba natin to paramihin para buong country natin kaya natin magawa? But it takes people to step up It takes people to start going through the process of talking to the people, of asking them what are their problems. And that takes the people, like kayo, yung taong bayan mismo. ako pati mga kaibigan ko, na dati rin volunteer ng Lente o dating volunteer ng ibang human rights or organizations, nagtuyo kami ng isang NGO na tawag na Hirayang Kabataan. Gaya na sinasabi ko kanina, kailangan natin na manggaling sa taong bayan ang magbabago ng kanilang local communities. And palagi natin sasabi, ang kabataan ang kinabukasan. The youth is the future, they are our hope. But if we do not train them today to be the leaders of tomorrow, walang mangyayari sa kanila. Kaya naisip namin to focus on like forming our youth leaders so that down the line, they can be future leaders for their own communities. And nag-focus kami not just on nag-focus kami on the youth in academic institutions, mga estudyante natin. And at the same time, nag-focus kami on training mga sangguniang kabataan natin. Kasi kaya ng kabataan gumawa ng pagbabago eh. Kaya nila, kahit bata pa lang sila, kaya nila. But if ngayon pa lang, mapaniwala sila niyan, bibigyan sila ng pagkakataon na maging mas magaling, na maging mas malaking bagay, maging mas malaking parte ng kanilang komunidad. So, kaya kami nag-focus on youth leadership development rin talaga. Kasi feeling namin, sila ang magbabago ng ating bansa. Siyempre napapagod. But tinatanong ko na lang sa sarili ko palagi, if hindi ako sino? If hindi ngayon, kailan? And dahil doon, dahil namomotivate ko sa sarili ko na mag-fight forward or mag-volunteer lalo, makita mo yung different pockets of change nga na sinabi ko kanina. Yung mga perspective ng different volunteers natin or different local communities natin. Nandun yung kagustuhan nila magbago ang bayan eh. And if ako ngayon, hindi ako gagalaw patungo doon, paano ko pa expect yung bansa natin magbago? Madalas ko sinasabi sa mga tao na gusto ko baguhin ang bansa. Pero if ako mismo hindi ako gagalaw para baguhin yun, walang mangyayari sa Pilipinas. Naniniwala pa ako sa Pilipino. Naniniwala po ako na pag makita nila na isang tao talaga, sincere na gusto baguhin ang bayan, boboto nila. At hindi lang nila boboto, pasusuportahan pa talaga nila. But importante nga, na mapakita mo sa tao, makuha mo yung trust nila na ako nga, seryoso ako na gusto ko baguhin ang bayan natin.
Hinahangad ko na lahat ng mga kandidato ay makipagtulungan. Na sana igalang nila ang sagrado ng boto ng bawat isa. Kung ano ang kanyang ninanais na iboto ay hindi dapat diktahan ng sino paman. Ako po ay si Mr. Rolando Paed, ang PPCRB Coordinator ng Epiphany of the Lord Parish. Sa araw ng halalan sa May 13. Ako ay naglingkod bilang Public Affairs Ministry sa simbahan at nahirang din ako ng PPCRB Coordinator. Ang ginagawa ng PPCRB, yung tinatawag na Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting, ito ay nagbabantay tuwing mayroong eleksyon. Maging ito ay local o ito ay national. Nag-organize ang mga diocese kasi ang PPCRB ay tinatawag na citizen arm ng COMELEC. 25 up to April 23, meron tayong final. Yung mga simpleng preparasyon, kasi nga bago magbutuan, mayroong mga tinatawag na sealing of the BCM. Binabantayan na yan ng PPCRB. Day before or 2 days before, isinisil na yan. After that, kapag actual na butuhan na, mauuna ang PPCRB sa loob ng polling precinct. Sinasabayan na namin yung mga teachers at mayroon ng kanya-kanyang delegasyon. May ambat, may core groups, mayroon tinatawag na security. Kaya yung security, naka-posisyon na yan sa kanyang babantayan. Yung mga pews, alam na yan. Yung mga exit and entrance, alam din na namin yan. Mayroon ng tinatawag na organized plan. Noon, as may observation doon sa binabantayan namin paaralan, Ang botante kasi ay 100,000. So, magulo. Ito ay, noong 1997, talagang nagkakaroon pa ng mga brownout at mayroon pang tinatawag na agawan ng mga balota. Nung pumasok ang PPCRB volunteers, mayroon kasing tinatawag na magmula sa pagdating ng BCM o balota. Dalawa yan, manual. Kung barangay, balota. Kung yung tinatawag na national, BCM. Pero during that time, 1997, wala pang BCM. Puro box ang ginagamit. Kaya mayroong posibilidad talaga na harangin yung mga balota. Kaya ang ginagawa ng PPCRB is to safeguard the balota hanggang mayatid ito sa munisipyo. Usually, hindi nawawala yung mga experience yan. Yung aawayin ang BEI, mayroong tinatawag na nawawala ang aking pangalan. During that time, noong 1997, alam mo ang Kamarin ay hotspot. Pag sinabi natin hotspots, nilalagyan siya ng Marines, Army, binabantayan yan. Kasi ang Kamarin ay bukid area during that time. The more na kukunti ang tao, mas magulo. Sa tulong na rin ng Pong May Kapal, kasi siya din ang nagbigay ng kayo ang volunteer, kayo ang bantay, kayo ay makialam. Hindi dapat kayo nagbubulag-bulagan, kundi kayo ay makialam. Huwag din kayong tatanggap ng mga pera, kundi kayo ay magsiservisyo ayon sa sinasabi ng Panginoon. Hopefully, walang magiging mga harassment, walang magiging tinatawag na bilihan ng boto, at walang magiging tinatawag na sagabal, mga taong manggugulo sa polling precinct. Ang hope lang namin ay maging mapayapa. Sa palagay ko, tahimik ang mga tao. Pero matalino ang mga botante ngayon ayon sa nangyayari sa kapaligiran. Ayon sa kanilang nakikita. At ayon din sa kanilang nararamdaman. Silent lang sila. Pero alam nila kung ano yung nararapat nilang iboto. Ang kapangyarihan talaga ay nasa tao. Napakahalaga na ang mga tao ay hindi dapat mabulag sa 500 pesos sa tinatawag na dilata at nakabalot na bigas. Napakahalaga ang eleksyon sapagkat yan yung tinatawag na panahon ng pagpapalit ng tamang tao na uupo sa kanyang paglilingkuran. Kung ang mamumuno sa atin ay mayroong tinatawag na core values at naitataguyod niya ang mga sambayan ng Pilipino, hindi po tayo maghihirap. Ganyan ang minimithi ko sa mga susunod na mga mamamahala ng ating bansa.
Silang lahat, pupunta sila sa meeting namin, briefing.
Marami kayong gagawin.
Basta pag tinawag nila ako, nakalista ang pangalan ko dyan, di ako nagsasabi ng no. Pag inilagay nila yan, nilalagay na, mayroon kayong training sa ganitong araw. Pumunta ako, magti-train ako. Susunod lang na susunod. Hindi ako nagrereklamo ng, dahil kailangan, tsaka dapat. Kaysa naman walang eleksyon. Alin ka dyan? Sa may eleksyon o wala? Ako po si Placer Eduarte, 30 years na nagtuturo sa Kalayaan Elementary School. Nung newly hired pa lang ako, pag pinag-out of office kami, nakalagay doon na yung mga gawain na hindi naman na pagturo, kailangan sumagot kami doon kung may tawag. Katulad nga ng number 1 talaga yung eleksyon. Kasi dati talaga walang ibang umupo ng eleksyon, teacher lang. So, nakaano na rin sa akin yun na, sige, pagka may eleksyon, serve lang na serve. Kasi ang unang eleksyon ko na nandito na ako, Yung Fidel Ramos yung nanalo. Yun, 1992. Ang haba ng eleksyon na yun. Biruin mo, doon kami sa may Mindanao na building, may Mindanao building dito. Parang 2 araw kami, 3 araw kami nakatapos. Pero yung iba, umabot sila ng 5 araw. Mano-mano lang yun. Iba, pinabutuhan yung 24 ba yung senador? Lahat ng senador, pinalitan yun. So, itatara mo yun isa-isa. Yung butante mo, umabot ng 800. Babasahin mo yun, tatarahin mo yun isa-isa. Tapos yung presidente pa, tapos yung mayor pa. Lahat yun, pinalitan. Tapos napagod ako noon. Pero hindi sila noon maduda. Hindi. Yung mga parapernalya ko, tsaka yung mga tally sheet, tally board. Pagkatapos ko nagpabuto, antok na ako. Tinambak ko siya sa lamesa. Tapos dinapaan ko siya. Tapos natulog ako, nakadapa ako doon, nakahawak ko sa ballot box. Baka may magnakaw, malalaman ko yun. Pero umaga yun, dinapaan ko siya. Walang nagreklamo, wala lang. Pag may humugot doon, siyempre mamamalayan ko. Kailangan talaga no, protektahan mo yung boto ng tao yun eh. Kumbaga, sagrado na yun. Hanggang po sa baba ay polling place din kasi marami pang butante dito. Tapos po, yung mga ibang teacher ay hindi na nag-uupo ng eleksyon kasi po, nung naging na tayo, PICOS. Pero yung dati, lahat po ng 200 teachers mahigit, ay lahat po sila umuupo. Kulang pa yung kumukuha pa po kami ng tao sa labas na magsuserve. Bilang Board of Election Inspector, kailangan yung mga tao mapaboto talaga ng naaayon. Kasi minsan maingat ka rin eh. Kasi may iiningatan tayo dyan kasi minsan may flying voter. Maging maingat ka, kausapin mo yung mga watcher. Kasi kami, hindi namin kilala ang tao. Kaya sinasabi, kinakausap ko sila kung pwede. Pag hindi yan, mukha na yan, hindi nyo masyadong natatandaan, magsabi ka agad kayo. Ako yata doon pinakamatanda, no?
Ikaw yung living legend. Election ulit.
Yung pinaka-first election na after snap election, parang lax ang mga tao, hindi sila maduda sa cheating. Walang ganun. Pero natandaan ko talaga, inuwi namin yung Book of Voters, ang hindi lang namin inuwi, yung kinuha namin yung madaling araw, yung balot na walang laman. Wala kaming mapag-istakan dito, walang magbabantay. Kailangan kasi nung secured eh. Pag mas sa bahay mo, secured yun. Ikaw ang mananagot nun. You are accountable, kinuha mo na yun eh. Pinirmahan mo na yun sa COMELEC. Meron pang eleksyon dito na may mga local yun. Na mahirap ang local. Yung mga ibang BEI, inaaway nila. Tapos may BEI nga dito na co-teacher ko pero hindi ko alam kung nandito pa siya. Sinakal. Yun ang nakakatakot sa eleksyon. Parang nagbibintang sila na dinadaya sila na hindi naman. Mahirap ang daya sa presinto. Walang magdadaya dyan. Magbabasa ka. May watcher sa likod. Oh, paano ka magdadaya dun?
But remember, we are printing 30...
May eleksyon pa dito na pinapunta kami ng City Hall 2:00. Madaling araw. Kasi maraming kumukuha eh. Ewan kung ilang presinto mayroon ang Caloocan. Pagdating namin doon, di kami pinapasok sa City Hall. Hindi nila pinapakuha. Nainis na ako kasi umaga na 10:00 na. Di kami kumain, di kami natulog. Oh. Tapos hindi pa sa amin binibigay yung ano. Naggalit ako, may mga army doon yung nakakamuflage. Tinulak ko sila, 4 sila eh. Natihaya silang lahat. Tapos hinanap ko yung sa akin, nakuha ko. Umuwi na rin ako dito, nagpabuto na ako pero 12:00 na yun. Tanghali. Oh, pintahin mo yan. Maganda rin naman sa PICOS kasi mabilis lang. Hindi ka nag-iisa-isa ng ganun. Ang ano mo lang, pipirmahan mo na lang. At saka, yung baluta, hindi mo nabubukain. Basta binoto na nila, isasalang mo. Pero unang PICOS, ayan, no? Nasugatan ako dun, no? Yung nag-jam yung papel, sabi nila, diniinan ko. May alam rin pala sa loob. O, kinayod yung aking balat. Unang-unang PICOS yun.
Hoy, ito!
ito, mga kasamahan ko ito sa isang polling place sa iba-ibang precinct sa Kalayaan Elementary School. Orientation lang, parang i-refresh lang kami ulit kung ano ang mga gagawin. Parang na-excited na lang ako. Tapos yung ano lang, ang inaano ko lang dyan, yung sino ang mananalo, maayos bang bubutuhan ng mga tao, yung sana makakapili sila ng maayos na maglilingkod. Kasi kung hindi sila makakapili na maayos na maglilingkod, kasi marami pa rin tayong problema eh. Bilang mamamayan, tsaka bilang teacher, I look forward na maging maayos ang pagpili. Yun lang talaga, na makakapili sila.
Palitan mo na lang.
Ang lahat ng Pilipino o lahat ng mamamayan na dapat nang bumoto ay bumoto para makapili naman sila ng kanilang gustong mamuno sa ating bansa. Tsaka dapat pag bumoto sila, ang kailangan pumili talaga sila, pag-aralan nila. Sabi nga, vote not for your friend but for your public friend. Hindi yung sa kapakanan lang ng ilan. Kailangan yung sa kapakanan ng lahat.
$134 groups vying for 59 seats at the House of Representatives, but voters can only choose one. As you head to the polls and exercise your rights, have you thought about whether your party list group really represents you? Good evening, I'm Ruth Cabal. This is On the Record. Our guests for this episode, Professor Danilo Arao, convener of election watchdog Contra Daya, and election lawyer George Garcia. Comelec Commissioner Rowena Guanzon is joining us on the phone. Good evening, gentlemen, and welcome to On the Record.
Good evening. Good evening.
So as we said earlier, more than 100 party list groups will be vying for these elections. We have nurses groups, OFWs, teachers, athletes, transports, farmers. Para saan po ba talaga itong party list representative, Prof?
Yeah, based on the 1995 law, it's supposed to represent the marginalized and underrepresented, although there's a clear provision there that the groups can be national, regional, or sectoral in orientation. But nevertheless, there is a recognition that the House of Representatives is not really truly representative. So that would explain for the 1995 law. But of course, fast forward to 2019, it's the exact opposite that's happening because the party list system has become a backdoor for the rich and powerful to further entrench themselves in the House of Representatives.
Mamaya we'll discuss that further, yung sinasabi niyong naging backdoor na siya kasi I think Contra Daya has a study. We're just flashing yung, yung sa law, attorney, di ba nakalagay doon sa batas, dapat proportional representation, registered national, regional, and sectoral, sectoral representatives. So, ano ba dapat yung make-up ng isang magva-vie for a party list representative?
Practically, napaka-general yung provision ng law. Kaya nga ako, I had been advocating for the amendment of Republic Act 7941. Kasi pag tinignan mo, practically everybody pwede maging masabi marginalized, underrepresented. Kahit nga ngayon, kahit nga mga professional, underrepresented, marginalized din daw sila. So, I think Congress, there is a need for Congress to specify a little more what is meant by marginalized, what is meant by underrepresented. You know what is happening? And what is happening right now is that it is the Supreme Court that is acting as the Congress, the one legislating via the so-called judicial legislation. That we cannot allow. It should be the role of Congress. Kaya nga, ito dapat na for this coming Congress, 7941 should be amended. Yung statement of policy should be clarified. Yeah. Two important points. In 2001, the Supreme Court tried to define what's meant by marginalized and underrepresented, and in not so many words, basically we're talking about economic deprivation,
deprivation or not having access to basic services. But fast forward again to 12 years later, the Atong Paglaong case of the Supreme Court practically reversed the 2001 ruling. Now, the second point that I'd like to raise here is that there are pending bills in Congress seeking to amend the party list law, and one of them seeks to change the provision, and there is a prohibition now to ensure that political dynasty will not be allowed. So that's one. And the incumbent executives and legislators and local officials will not be allowed to serve as nominees.
Yun na nga, na-mention mo na yan, Prof. Ano ba ang sitwasyon ngayon? Kasi hindi naman kaila sa atin, may mga party list representative ngayon na bilyonaryo, ilan yung bilyonaryo dyan. Parang sinasabi, how can you represent the marginalized and underrepresented? Ano yung nakita niya sa study niyo?
Just to be on the record, the richest legislator right now is a party list representative. We can identify him. He is Representative Michael Romero of One Pacman, and his net worth is, guess what, 7 billion pesos, which is ironic. And of course, on the extreme side, the poorest legislator is also a party list representative with a net worth of 50,000. That's, I think, Kabataan Party List Representative Sara Elago. So there's a big discrepancy. So the characteristic right now, based on our study, and if we want to refer to the latest survey of Pulse Asia, out of the 57 probable party list representatives, we've flagged 35 of them as being part of a party list group that either has connections to political dynasty or incumbent officials. Number 2, special business interests. And number 3, questionable advocacy or dubious nominees.
So ito yung, may nakita rin kayo na many have links with incumbent government officials, di ba? With the Duterte administration also.
Yeah, we can identify one. Duterte Youth, for example, the chair of the Duterte Youth movement is Ronald Cardema, who also happens to be the chair of the National Youth Commission. The first nominee of the Duterte Youth is the wife of Cardema, Durcel Marie Suarez, and the fifth nominee is surnamed Cardema. So apparently a relative also of Ronald Cardema. So those are some manifestations. We can also define certain party list groups that are part of the political dynasty, chief of which would be Abono, for example, which is the party list group of two dynasties, the Estrellas and the Ortegas of La Union and Pangasinan.
Bakit pa ginagawa yun, Prof? Attorney, bakit ginagamit ang party list system? Para saan ito? Nag-iiba na tuloy yung ibig sabihin, Attorney?
Siguro nga to propagate themselves sa power, at the same time to maintain themselves sa power, and at the same time para din hindi lang isang representative, mas madami pang representatives, kasi kung kaya mo namang mapanalo yung party list mo sa probinsya mo, kung kailangan lang 600,000 ang province mo with 1 million voting population, why
kaya
not?
mo makuha.
Kaya mo makuha. So siguro yung opportunity na naandun, at the same time kasi nga wala siyang defined constituency, unlike yung congressman ng isang district, dun ka sa district.
Pero that's also in the law, di ba? Yung lack of well-defined political constituency.
Tama yun. Kaya lang, pwede ako mag-concentrate dito lang sa municipality nito. Pwede ako mag-concentrate.
Kasi ang dami mo ng tao.
Yung lahat ng projects, kung mabibigyan man ako, dito ko lahat ilalagay. Because, sasabihin ko, nandun lahat yung mga supporters ko.
Yeah. And we have to remember that aside from being a backdoor, sometimes the party list system is a mechanism for incumbent local officials to take a breather after their term expires, so that they can go back to the local executive but be in power for the time being. One apparent example would be ABECA. ABECA Kapampangan, which is supposed to be a party list group for the marginalized Kapampangans, but the first nominee is the incumbent mayor of Angeles City, Edgar Pamintuan. So these are some manifestations.
Yung iba may mga regional groups din naman talaga, di ba?
Ako Bicol is one of them. Ako Bicol, for example, as a Bicolano, I'm not supposed to be critical of Ako Bicol, but it's one of the more apparent party list groups that are controlled by a political dynasty.
We have the list here,
Yes,
yung mga may incumbent officials.
Exactly. So ABECA, Bisaya, Ako Bicol, and Ako Bicol is a bit distinct in the sense that it's not just an issue of political dynasty or incumbent officials, but also the fact that there's a special business interest group there, Elizal Deco, who is one of the bigger industrialists in the Bicol region.
But in a general sense, paano nakakalusot yung ganito? I mean, if you say, kasi nga, the law, the 2013, anong nangyari sa 2013 ruling ng Supreme Court?
I think ang start nito dahil nga sa hindi kasi na-define at the same time na-enumerate ng Congress ano talaga yung mga sectors. During the first time na nagkaroon tayo ng party list, meron talaga nakalagay sa transitory provision ng Constitution, farmers, fisherfolk, women. Nung after that, wala kasi. In fact, ngayon, halimbawa, wala tayong veterans representative at wala rin tayong representative sa PWD. Kasi hindi sinabi ng Congress na dapat 10 lang ang sectors. So ito yung mga 10 ito. Dapat dyan, what should really happen is, if I am, for example, from the farmers group, si Prof ay from the farmers group, kami will be competing against each other.
Pili na lang kayo ng isa
sa party list, doon sa sector na yon. So that at any given time, laging may representative yung particular sector. Ang nangyayari ngayon, one particular group will control half of
kasi may 3 seats siya or may
at the same time, kasi nga, hindi naman dinify ng ilan yung naka-assign sa women, ilan yung naka-assign sa youth, ilan yung naka-assign sa farmers group, fisher folks. Hindi kasi nakalagay sa law.
Okay. Pag-usapan pa natin yung ibang possible remedies, and we'll also have a COMELEC commissioner later on with us. We'll be back after a quick break. This is On the Record. This is On the Record on CNN Philippines. We're talking about the party list system. Si Attorney Garcia was saying kanina na dapat mas maging specific in terms of the sectors that should be represented. Professor, sa inyo.
Yeah, of course, the sector should be duly represented, but of course, it all boils down to the political will on the part of the COMELEC to put its foot down in terms of choosing the candidates. Because from what we've studied, there are certain party list groups that truly represent the marginalized based on their track record, but they were disqualified for one reason or the other. But the other ones with questionable credentials would end up being selected. So it's not enough that from 185 initially, way back in October 2018, we now have 134. But because those that were disqualified, some of them are quite deserving, and those that were retained were quite questionable to say the least.
Okay, we have Commissioner Guanzon on the line. Good evening, Commissioner.
Good evening.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, can you just address yung concerns na dapat nga daw mas masala ng COMELEC yung accreditation nitong mga party list groups? Hello, ma'am?
The other end.
Commissioner, tanong lang namin, paano po ba yung process of vetting yung with regards to accreditation ng party list system, party list groups?
Well, the COMELEC is divided into 2 divisions. We hear their petition. And then, of course, there is a law and rules on compliance. There are requirements. They have to, all their members must have consented to their filing of their petition for registration, etc. What's the problem?
Well, some are saying na kasi nga daw po, yung iba are really deserving to be there, that they really represent yung mga marginalized sectors, while the others are not deserving naman. Yung iba dyan, binabanggit, may connection dun sa mga incumbent officials. Paano po ba sinasala yung mga ganong grupo?
I know, but there's no disqualification nga, even if they are immediate family of sitting politicians. That's the problem. Kasi the Supreme Court has already ruled that hindi naman kailangan that they belong to the state.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
For example, hindi naman sila kanyang bicycle driver para mag-represent ng Bicycle Drivers Association. There's a multi-millionaire there representing, jeepney operators. Somebody's representing what do you call this? Sports people, and he's not even a sportsman. So, wala kami magagawa dyan because the ruling of the Supreme Court. I wish it were otherwise because I would rather that we really provide for representation of marginalized sector. Kasi if that's the interpretation, edi pwede nga ng senior citizens ay pwedeng i-represent ng hindi senior citizen, di ba?
Yeah.
O kaya yung mga kababaihan na party list ay pwedeng ang representative nila ay lalaki. I mean, if you have to give an absurd example, that is the result. But we cannot do anything about that because that's the Supreme Court ruling. So we have to abide. So yung mga decisions namin are based on their compliance. Yung iba nga po, masakit sa loob ko na vote ako to deny. Kasi yung mga, minsan, would you believe, may isang petition walang verification. Hindi man lang na notaryo. Yung mga ganun ba? So baka kailangan po talagang yung mga na-deny namin, tingnan niyo po kung ang denial niyo ay dahil sa kulang talaga kayo ng dokumento o hindi kayo na-verify ng aming election officer na meron kayong mga chapters sa mga ganitong lugar na sinabi niyo, you allege in your petition na meron kayong mga chapters dyan. But upon verification, you don't have. It's not true, no? So, case to case po talaga yan. So, ayoko pong lahatin natin yan, no? I don't want to generalize.
Okay, tapos pati ma'am, even in terms of nominees, no? Kasi may specific lang na requirements, di ba? So, hindi rin nyo talaga tinitingnan kunwari yung SALN kung gano'n.
They have to have qualifications also, just like candidates for Congress. They also fill up a form na parang certificate of candidacy, you see? So, hindi rin sila pwedeng dual citizen sila or resident sila of a foreign country, di ba? So, not anybody can just be a nominee there. Foreigners cannot be, right? Dual citizens cannot. Those convicted by final judgment of crimes involving moral turpitude are disqualified. So, but the difference is party list, yung list of nominees nila na 5, they can change it, up to May 13. They can change the list. They can withdraw and then add. So if they say 1 to 5 and number 3 to 5 withdraw, and then palitan nila, yung number 2 nila go up. They go up, right? So pwede nilang palitan isa or all of them.
Okay.
But up to May 13.
Okay. Ma'am, but personally, as a COMELEC commissioner, what do you think of the whole system? Ano yung pwede nating ayusin para talagang this will really genuinely work to represent
I already said this several times.
Okay.
That political dynasties in the Philippines really strive not only in, by vying for regular seats, but also in the party list system. So I hope that there will be a law someday that will, reform this and at least, will prohibit the nominees who are related to a sitting elected official within the 3rd degree or 4th degree. So, although hindi mo mapapalitan yung ruling ng Supreme Court until, the Supreme Court itself revisits their ruling and then reverses it after another petition is filed. There's nothing we can do about that but reform the law, no? Limit the nominees to people who are not related to incumbent elected officials.
Okay. Let me ask yung guests natin in the studio for your reactions. Professor.
Well, it's good that Commissioner Guanzon recognizes the presence of party list groups, political dynasty is in party list groups because it's really an alarming trend right now. And the 2013 decision of the Supreme Court did not help any. But for the COMELEC, even with the existing Supreme Court ruling, it can still put its foot down. For example, we've challenged the COMELEC in the past to organize, for example, a public forum, invite all the questionable party list groups, and then let them explain why they're running and answer some accusations of election watchdogs like Contra Daya. The media can be invited as well as other election watchdogs. This kind of quote-unquote extra legal remedy can serve as a mechanism to ensure that we can expose these party list groups. Because I have to go on record here to tell you, Ruth, that from my experience in making public fora and all that, the party list groups do not want to engage election watchdogs like Contra Daya. They try to remain silent, and their silence is actually quite deafening right now.
Attorney.
I would like to agree with Commissioner Guanzon. in the entirety of what she said. In fact, siya yung isa sa pinaka-aktibo sa komisyon na talagang kapag hindi qualified, negative. Pag hindi qualified, denied ang petition. But what Commissioner Guanzon is actually saying is, because there is this law and there is this Supreme Court decision, our hands are tied.
Yes.
How will you change the Supreme Court decision? First thing first, you change the law. Because the law can always correct whatever the Supreme Court wants us to correct. And what I'm saying likewise is, we start with the petition for accreditation. Once a petition is filed, then groups like Contra Daya and any other group may oppose and should oppose.
Yun yung
a particular
sinasabi niya na
petition.
hanggat walang nagfa-file ng disqualification against yung
Correct.
group, hindi sila
In
makakagalaw.
fact, that's the reason why pinapublish yan in newspapers of general circulation. And then during the hearing, ang kauna-unahang tinatanong ng presiding commissioner, is there any objection, opposition to the petition? Pag the court hears none, and then therefore they will proceed. And then the next step naman, yung nag-submit na sila ng kanilang mga nominees. Anybody can likewise file a petition to deny due course and or cancel
Dun sa nominee.
the nominee. But hindi nagpa-file. May period din yung filing nun. So what can we do? Pag wala kang final, at tapos na-elect yun, the next remedy is go to the HRET, the House of Representatives Electoral Tribunal, and tapos na ang term, hindi pa natatapos ang kaso. So that is actually the problem. But ako, para sa akin, dun pa lang sa petition for accreditation, dun pa lang tapusin na.
Si Commissioner is still with us? Yes? Ay, okay. Kasi akala ko she was gonna comment.
But I think two words would be important here, motu proprio. I'm not sure if I would defer to the expertise of our lawyer here, but I think sometimes political will should be exercised by the COMELEC. It cannot be reactive in its nature. So sometimes there should be some leeway by which they can act on its own, especially when there is something glaring.
Ako naman, okay, tama yun.
Pwede ba yun nga?
Yung correct, the COMELEC can always
Investigate
exercise a
on its
motu
own,
proprio power. But take note, if I am a farmers group, talaga namang super marginalized, and then hindi ko naman sinasabi na ang kukuhanin lang lawyer, yung mumurahin na lawyer. Kaya lang, di siyempre ini-expect natin na since marginalized nga sila, you cannot expect them to file a very good petition. And so, ako naman, para sa akin, mas maganda bigyan natin ng pagkakataon. Let them give them the opportunity to be heard in a formal hearing. And doon makikita, sino talaga yung mga minsan kasi, under the guise, ito yung aming mga officers. Dapat din sa pagpa-file ng petition for accreditation, sabihin nyo na, who are your proposed nominees? Under oath yun eh. Di ba? Under oath yung, at least kahit paano, makikita na kaagad.
Pero sa ngayon, you don't give it agad, di ba?
Only the officers.
Accreditation pa lang nung grupo and the officers.
Because the nominees come later.
After the accreditation pa eh. Maganda, siguro nga isama na, para kung sakaling bigla nilang baguhin, we can file perjury charges against them.
Saka yung sinasabi ni Commissioner na hanggang sa dulo pwede palitan yung nominees, di ba?
Even at the last minute. And actually, once they sit in Congress, it only takes a resolution on the party list group to, boot out their party list representatives and replace them with new ones.
Tapos nag-aaway pa.
Yes, exactly.
Nag-aaway pa. Ang dami kong nahawakang kaso. Dati magkasama. Nung nagpapal pa kami ng petition, talaga namang united together. Pagkatapos, nung naandyan na, especially isa lang ang nanalo, away-away na.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting here, Ruth, just to add, what's funny about the list of the party list representatives right now is that there are certain party list groups that have two sets of nominees. So because
meron nang nakamark na yun sa COMELEC. Okay,
exactly.
We'll have another quick break and we'll continue our discussion. Stay with us. This is On the Record. This is On the Record on CNN Philippines. We're talking about the party list system. For the record naman, I'd like to say nakaboto na ako for absentee voting and I voted for a party list na. Kasi nakikita ko may mga party list na nag-iingay din talaga sa Kongreso and then also may mga fina-file na bills, di ba? So meron namang positive about the party list system. Pero you mentioned yung mga negative aspects din. Pero to make sure na hindi na mangyayari yung ganyan, ano pong tips nyo and how can your party list representative truly represent you?
Well, of course, the people should choose wisely. On the part of Contra Daya, we've released a 39-page voters guide just for the party list election system. And we hope that people would take time to read it and do further research for the party list of their choice. I think what's basic here is that they should internalize and find out which sector they belong to. And then from there, try to find out if there are party list groups that would really represent their interests. So I think that's the bottom line. Study, 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 and research, research, research.
Pati yung nominees, ano, Prof?
Exactly,
Oo.
yes. And on the part of Contra Daya, we've tried to do that. We've gathered necessary information on these party list nominees, and that's how we found out, and we've flagged many, at least 62 out of 134 are quite dubious. So there are others that are truly representative, so we just need to look at their track records.
Kasi yung sa amin sa absentee voting, may list din kasi ng mga nominees. But
Yes.
in the real, sa ballot, sa actual voting, wala eh, no? Wala makikita.
It's only the names of the party list. That's why it's necessary to really do research, find out who's really running, because I don't want to mention a particular party list group that has 2 celebrity endorsers, and people get the impression that these celebrity endorsers will end
Are
up sitting
nominees,
in Congress,
oo.
are the party list nominees. That's not.
Okay, kayo, attorney.
Ako naman, gusto ko lang, for the record, gusto ko i-point out, sa Congress, ang pinakamaingay ang party list representatives.
Yeah,
ang pinakamadaming bills ang
Yeah.
party list representatives. Ang laging present sa lahat ng committee hearings, ang party list representatives. Napaka-substantial ang kanilang contribution sa legislative process natin. At yun nga lang yung nagiging problem, yung mga ganyang mga nominees na pro-prostitute nila ang sistema. And sana, ang titingnan ng ating mga kababayan, ng ating mga botante, track record. Track record is sinabi na ng Supreme Court yan, track record is very, very important. And in fact, in 2 cases that I elevated to the Supreme Court, sinabi ng Supreme Court kasi na ang members of Congress ay ang nominees, hindi ang party list organization. Pero, pag nagpa-accredit, ang accredited, yung party list organization, hindi naman yung mga nominees. So doon pa lang may mga konting problem na tayo.
So anong dapat tandaan? Track record and...
track record and tama yung pinapoint out ni Prof. Ano talaga ang sector mo? Ano yung sector mo na mahal mo at gusto mo, yun yung mag-prevail sa Congress.
Okay, thank you very much to our guests, Professor Danilo Araw, Attorney George Garcia, and COMELEC Commissioner Rowena Guanzon. That's on the record tonight. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ruth Cabal.
Good afternoon, I'm Mai Rodriguez. Thanks for joining us. With just 2 more days till the midterm elections, candidates are going all out to win votes. Today is the last day of the campaign period, and political parties are gearing up for their meeting de avance. The administration's PDP Laban will hold its final sortie at the Philippine Sports Arena in Pasig. The party's chairman, President Duterte, is expected to attend. In Makati, re-electionist Nancy Binay and her brother Junjun Binay, who's running for city mayor, will meet supporters this afternoon in Barangay Northside in Makati. And in San Juan, Francis Zamora, who's running for mayor, will hold his meeting de avance at the Philoil Flying V Center, while his rival Janela Estrada will meet supporters at the Bonifacio Monument. Cynthia Villar emerges as the front-runner in the final pre-election survey of Pulse Asia. This is the first time Villar overtook fellow re-electionist Grace Poe. They've been sharing the top spot in previous surveys. The next spots were taken by Pia Cayetano, Bongo, Bong Revilla, and Lito Lapid. Also making the list, administration bets Bato de la Rosa, Sani Angara, Amy Marcos, Nancy Binay, and Coco Pimentel. Brothers JV Ejercito and Jinggoy Estrada made it to the top 15, which includes Bam Aquino and Francis Tolentino. The survey was conducted from May 3 to 6 among 1,800 respondents. The COMELEC confirms reports of corrupted secure digital cards or SD cards, but it assures the public there's no reason to worry. COMELEC spokesperson James Jimenez says around 680 out of over 85,700 cards are corrupted after the final testing and sealing of machines. The SD cards will be used to store the encrypted image of the ballots fed inside the vote counting machines on election day. Jimenez says the COMELEC is prepared as it has thousands of buffer stock and it is already working on replacing the corrupted ones. We now talk to COMELEC Commissioner Rowena Guanzon. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Please go ahead.
Okay, first, ma'am, let's talk about the corrupted SD cards. Were these replaced already? At kailan po ang sealing of vote counting machines pag napalitan na yung mga SD cards, ma'am?
Well, they're being replaced now. We have technical regional hub. Commissioner Marlon Casquejos is on top of this problem. And he assures the public that it will be finished today. So the final testing and sealing, 100%, should be finished today, Saturday.
Okay, saan po ba ang mga voting precincts ang karamihan sa na-corrupted SD cards?
I wouldn't know that.
Okay, but yung corrupted...
Because those SD cards go with the vote counting machine.
Okay.
I think it's more important to talk about the solutions rather than the problem. Because we're already less than 48 hours away from Monday. Let's talk about the solution.
What are your solutions, ma'am, to this?
I already said it. The Commissioner Marlon Casquejos already assured the public that all the SD cards will be replaced by today through the regional technical hubs, and the final testing and sealing of all VCNs should be 100% complete by today. As of today, more than a majority of our election officers have already posted their list of voters on the school building, and they should be able to complete that by Sunday night.
Okay, another issue, yung precinct finder sa COMELEC website, ma'am. Many have been complaining of wrong information.
Because somebody linked it when it's not yet tested.
Okay.
Somehow the link was uploaded. You know how Filipinos are so creative. We have not yet announced the official website for the precinct finder. So whatever you have now is not it, all right?
Yes.
So I just talked with our ITD director, and she said that the final, precinct finder will be determined today after clearance with the DICT. So once we've uploaded in our website, it's sure that's the one you should test, you should follow. Because the voters they're using the links that some people just spread around.
So hindi pa po pala ready yun?
No, that's not ours.
Yes.
We did not upload our precinct finder yet in our website. Once we upload it, there will be a massive information drive by Director Jimenez, and then we have contracts with abs-cbn and GMA. GMA, according to our agreement, can hook up to our precinct finder, and so that these networks can help, give access to all the voters nationwide. But the best thing, really, malapit lang naman po kayo, you're near the schools, is if you're near the schools, go there early and check your precinct. The best way is really to go early. Now, voting will start on Monday at 6 o'clock in the morning and will end at 6 o'clock in the evening. If you are within 30 meters at 6 o'clock, within 30 meters from your precinct, you will be the poll clerk will identify which of you are within 30-meter distance, and you can vote. Just make sure that you are in line. By 6 o'clock, you're standing on that line. So you can be identified and you'll be allowed to vote after 6 o'clock.
When is the targeted time po na ma-access na po ang precinct finder?
Oh, we'll let you know today.
Okay. Final words, ma'am, 2 days before the elections.
We're receiving very good reports from consulates, especially Kuwait and Dubai. The turnout and overseas voting in Kuwait and Dubai are quite good. Even in Paris, we expect a good number. Yung mga kababayan po natin sa abroad, please bumoto po kayo. Dito po sa atin sa Pilipinas, agahan po ninyo ang pagboto at sana po iwasan natin ang vote buying at pagtanggap ng pera sa mga politiko. Maraming salamat po. Maaga po tayo sa presinto sa Lunes, alas 6 ng umaga.
Okay, maraming salamat po, Commissioner Rowena Guanzon ng COMELEC. Thank you for your time. Poll watchdog Lente is taking over NAMFREL's role as a COMELEC citizens' arm for the random manual audit. This comes after NAMFREL decided to step back amid unresolved issues with the poll body. The random manual audit determines the integrity of the elections to check if the automated system is accurate. It is done through a manual verification using randomly selected precincts. This will happen on May 15th from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. in Manila.
We have already 12 trained volunteers to act as supervisors of the teachers who will be auditing the ballots in the random manual audit. So ready naman kami and prepared kami, and we took on the task despite the time limitations because we believe that the random manual audit is a necessary process and it ensures credibility in the elections. Nakita namin na kailangan na makisama kami dito sa prosesong to.
President Duterte calls his son, Paulo Duterte, lazy. He may have said it in jest after noticing Paulo was absent in last night's meeting de Avance in Davao City. The president was supposed to introduce the former vice mayor in the event of local party hugpong sa Tawong Lungsod when he noticed his son wasn't around. That's when the president said in Bisaya, and we're quoting a rough translation here, "My guess is when he is congressman and there are hearings, he won't be there." Paulo is running for representative of the 1st District.
1st District, Congressman, si Hamas Pulong, mo ni ako tagna na ko aning pulong, mo ni pinakakuha ko kaguhi, kugi sa kada adlaw sigurong hearing sa Congress wala diha.
In the same event, the president also tagged Senator Antonio Trillanes, Ocho Derecho, and the Magdalo Group as behind the viral Bicoy videos, which link President Duterte's family and some supporters to the drug trade.
Actually, kanang Bicoy, Magdalo na, o kanang Ocho Derecho, production na ni Trillanes. Ang iyang Bicoy nga giputos og ang iyang Bicoy nga giputos og ang naong dili to si Bicoy.
Malacanang had already branded the videos as black propaganda. Political dynasties have been dominating the national landscape for decades. Many political clans claim they remain in power because of the good performance of their family members. However, studies show that many parts of the country where political dynasties thrive are less developed and have remained poor. In this special report, Joyce Ilas looks at the reasons Filipinos vote for members of political clans and the consequences of their continued stay in power.
Through the years, political dynasties in the country have grown both in number and influence. In Taguig, husband and wife Alan and Lani Cayetano are running for congressional representative in 2 separate districts of the city. Alan's brother Lino is gunning for mayor, while their sister Pia wants to reclaim her seat in the Senate.
Wala naman dynasty sa Pilipinas kasi we have free and open elections. Ang konsepto kasi ng dynasty, no, is hindi yung magkakamag-anak o marami kayo. Ang konsepto nun, minamana nyo eh.
Joseph Estrada is making a last push to be Manila mayor. His estranged sons, JV and Jinggoy, are both running for senator.
I was not really in favor of us two brothers running at the same time. We are running as representatives of the people, not of the family.
Jinggoy's daughter Janela is running for San Juan mayor, hoping to replace JV's mother, outgoing Mayor Gia Gomez.
When I'm in the right age, gusto ko po sana magawa ko ano rin po yung ginagawa nila.
While many politicians turn to their spouse and children to expand and extend their political power, in some cases, politics tear powerful families apart. In Makati, the children of former Vice President Jojo Binay, Abby, and Junjun are running against each other in a vicious race for Makati mayor. The elder Binay himself, hoping to make a political comeback as Makati 1st District Representative, supports Abby. His other daughter, Nancy, is a sitting senator running for re-election. Nancy backs her brother, Junjun, against Abby.
Ang boto is part of the democratic process, no? Tao naman ang dumitisite. Bakit natin magbabawalan? Kung qualified naman.
Research from the Ateneo School of Government shows around 76% of governors, 78% of Congress members, and 51% of mayors in the country come from political clans. The study also projects that by 2040, 70% of all local government officials will be members of political dynasties. Dean Ronald Mendoza explains, having multiple family members in different elected positions diminishes accountability, as well as the checks and balances in government.
So if you have a power concentration of this type, you cannot expect the normal checks and balances of the democracy to kick in if the governor tries to do something wrong, if the mayor tries to do something wrong.
Mendoza also says studies show that the more members of political families in a province, the poorer and more underdeveloped it is. He explains, political dynasties do not institute deep reforms that address poverty in order to stay in power. Instead, they give dole-outs and immediate but temporary relief to their constituents, which do not ensure development.
Every time you have an election, you still have a lot of people who need you and who actually have utang na loob.
Political science professor Julio Tihanki says the overconcentration of power and resources to certain families prevent other aspiring Filipinos to have equal opportunity to participate in running the government.
The access to power is blocked and only a handful can enter, then that is unhealthy for democracy, because democracy thrives in the circulation of people in power.
This election, strong voices in society call on voters to carefully scrutinize candidates and to consider alternatives to the powers that be and choose those who will really bring development in their community and relief from poverty. Joy Silas, CNN Philippines.
This is Newsroom Weekend on CNN Philippines. Welcome back. While some candidates are intensifying their campaign rallies ahead of Monday's elections, others are stepping up efforts to woo voters by buying votes. That's why officials are encouraging the public to be more vigilant and report these incidents. Our Trisha Terada has more.
This footage shows people lining up signing a sheet of paper in exchange for shirt, baller, poster, and allegedly cash inside a brown envelope. According to the Anti-Corruption Commission, this is a vote-buying incident that took place in Manila. But it says it happens in many other areas too, like Abra, Pasay City, and Misamis Occidental. In Santiago, Isabela City, for example, a candidate allegedly used a government vehicle to buy votes. But for now, these are mere reports with no formal complaint submitted just yet.
Mere social media videos and people saying one thing or another does not really say, make it an official complaint affidavit that the government can act on.
In case a concerned citizen catches vote buying in the act, the best thing to do is to document by taking photos or videos and immediately reporting it to law enforcers like the NBI, police, or COMELEC. Once you get there, you need to file a formal complaint or a sworn affidavit. This is now going to be a lot easier because of Task Force Contra Bigay. Authorities have already prepared a complaint sheet template that should include details about the complainant and narration of facts. Once a sworn affidavit or complaint is ready, law enforcers will do a case build-up, then it can already be filed with COMELEC and or the prosecutor's office or Justice Department.
Natatakot po yung mga nagko-complaint or yung mga nakakita. And that is a valid issue. Wag ho kayong matakot. Government will protect you. Government will support you. I will personally make sure that you get the protection and the support that you need.
Almost the same process goes for those who merely have a tip or information of planned vote buying activity. Complainant must come forward to authorities, submit a sworn statement, then the police or NBI will build a case and will carry out an operation. Posting or reporting of photos and videos via social media will not be considered an official vote-buying complaint. If found guilty, a candidate may face perpetual disqualification from any elective post, plus imprisonment of not less than 6 months. Those guilty of selling votes may also serve time in jail. Meantime, the Anti-Corruption Commission slammed police personnel allegedly involved in political campaigns, such as escorting candidates.
Issued by the COMELEC. Yun lang po. Other than that, unauthorized po yun. So kung meron pong mapapansin yung mga kapatid natin, anywhere, kung meron po kayo, document it and report it to the nearest police station.
As election day draws nearer, authorities expect more incidents of vote buying. This is why they encourage the public to be brave and to report and file cases against these law offenders. Trisha Tarada, CNN Philippines.
The Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines denies reports they endorsed a number of senatorial candidates. CBCP President Archbishop Romulo Valles says bishops and priests are not allowed to endorse candidates as that is clearly partisan politics. He adds the CBCP continues to appeal to Filipinos to vote wisely using, quote, the process of discernment. And that's what's happening in the newsroom this Saturday, May 11th. Sports Desk Weekend is up next. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Welcome to the newsroom on CNN Philippines. In the news, candidates making their final push on the last day of the campaign period. On Monday, Filipinos will vote for a new set of leaders. The National Police and the Education Department are ready for Election Day, while the COMELEC is finalizing details on its precinct finder and some vote counting machines. Good evening, I'm Mai Rodriguez. Thanks for joining us. It's the final day of the campaign period with just 2 days to go before Filipinos head to the polls. This weekend, we are seeing a number of final sorties, the so-called meeting de avance. In fact, President Duterte is expected to speak at the PDP Laban rally tonight. Our Chrissy de Matulak is reporting live from the Philippine Sports Arena in Pasig. Chrissy, tell us what's happening there right now.
My candidates are pulling out all the stops to meet their supporters. Tonight is the last hurrah for the administration's PDP Laban, and all of the main candidates are here in the Philippine Sports Arena in Pasig City, including PDP President Coco Pimentel, Bongo, Ronald Bato de la Rosa, Dong Mangondadatu, and Francis Tolentino. The party's chairman, President Rodrigo Duterte, is also here and is expected to deliver his speech here tonight. PDP's guest candidates are also here, such as Sonny Angara, JV Ejercito, Cynthia Villar, Pia Cayetano, and Amy Marcos. Pimentel says they did not fall short in visiting all regions in the country. The candidates hope that the issues hounding the COMELEC days before the elections will be straightened out before Monday. About 10,000 supporters are cheering here for PDP, and they are treated with performances by different celebrities. Security around the area is tight, with around 150 security officers manning the premises. Because of the number of people who are attending this event, traffic is heavy in and around the arena, especially along Lanusa Street, where vehicles are double parked. Mai?
Of course, we are waiting for the appearance of President Duterte. Chrissy de Matulak there reporting live from Pasig City. Preparing for Monday's elections. Joining us in the studio, PNP spokesperson, Colonel Bernard Banac. Hi, sir. Thanks for coming over.
Good evening, Mai.
Okay, so ready na po on Monday.
Yes, the Philippine National Police is very much ready to provide security for the election on Monday, tomorrow.
On Monday, 2 days from now.
2 days from now.
So tell us, sir, how did you prepare for this year's elections? At ilan po ba ang madedeploy na police forces?
We prepared actually very early. And right now, we have deployed or started to deploy 149,000 of PNP personnel nationwide. And this includes all the security to be provided in the different polling centers and all the warehouses, the hubs of COMELEC, and those who will be providing security for the transport of paraphernalia and equipment, including the security of our teachers who will be serving as members of the board of inspectors. And we have standby forces ready to be deployed anytime, and they are positioned in strategic places in the different regions. And we also have a standby force here at Camp Crame, the national headquarters, where we are now monitoring the situation nationwide. So, and we are in a very good position right now because the peace and order is very good, right? And surprisingly, the number of election-related incidents is very low compared to the 2016 elections.
Ano po ang number na yun? And I was going to ask about the number of election-related killings.
Right.
So far po, ilan po sa ngayon?
Right now, we have recorded a total of 40 election-related incidents. And compared to 2016 statistics, that was 106 election-related incidents in 2016. And now we only have 40. And we still have a day left before the election day. And if ever this will increase, it will not go that high, you know? Yeah, very low.
Colonel Banac, at this time po, ilan po ba ang election hotspots natin sa ngayon? As I understand it, you were telling me yung hotspots, kasama na dito ang areas of grave concern, areas of immediate concern, at areas of concern. So ilan po lahat?
Yes, in our tally, we have 945 election hotspots nationwide. But for COMELEC, they have the published final list. And this has already reached 1,196 for the publication based on the COMELEC.
Anong kind of security ang ginagawa niyo po doon sa areas of grave concern? At ilan po ba ito? Mostly sa Mindanao po ito, no?
Yes, that's correct. Right now, there are only about 85 of those areas under the grave areas of grave concern, and mostly are found or located in Mindanao. But we do have some areas in Luzon and Visayas, like Abra, of course, is one of those, Masbate, and the other places, of course. And the deployment in these areas is more intense, and the monitoring is more intense, and
mas
the
maraming
deployment is
puwersa
maraming
po
forces, of
pinapadala.
course.
Elections or final words po, or your last-minute reminders for the public?
We remind the public that we remain vigilant and alert to report to the police any untoward incident or anything that you have a concern during the election day. And the COMELEC gun ban remains in force. And the law on vote buying is now being implemented by the PNP. And tonight, there will be a liquor ban starting 12:01 tonight. That's,
Good that you reminded, sir.
And that goes through until May 13, midnight. That's 48 hours of liquor ban.
Salamat po, PNP spokesperson Colonel Bernard Banac. Good to have you here, sir.
Thank you, Mai. Good evening.
Let's go down south, where authorities make final preparations prior to Monday's elections. Our senior correspondent David Santos joins us from Cotabato City for the latest. David, it seems security officials are bent on proving elections there can be peaceful despite being placed under COMELEC control.
Well, that's right, Mai. Authorities here are saying basically they've been through this just months ago, and the only way to do this again is to do better. Now, they are referring to the Bangsamoro plebiscite in January, which was about 4 months ago. Now, the logistical and security preparations for the plebiscite have become some sort of a template. No? Only this time they want it improved. Now, earlier today, the police inspected polling centers where they are going to test a new security scheme. Voters, candidates, and their supporters will no longer be allowed to linger or loiter inside polling centers on Monday. COMELEC has a very specific order. Voters will be ushered in. They will be given time to vote. Once they're done, they will be asked to leave the school premises immediately. Those who will refuse will have to be forcibly removed. Now, election materials are also now in place. Official ballots arriving late Friday night, while the voter counting machines are now in the different polling centers. Cotabato City and the rest of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region will be among key areas nationwide that will also get to try for the first time an automated voter identity verification system. Also, after weeks of barnstorming different communities, we saw today and yesterday candidates holding their meeting de avance, bitter rivals Cynthia Gianni and Sandra Sema, both vying for the city mayoral post. Packed huge crowds for their last campaign sortie. This early, both fiery women are claiming victory over each other. Mike.
David, interesting that both of them are claiming victory, but what do they think will make them lose?
Well, incumbent Mayor Cynthia Gianni claims getting text messages warning her that hundreds of Moro rebels are coming to the city, supposedly to force a Sandra Sema win. Sema, on the other hand, saying there could be a massive vote buying to sway her supporters. Now, unlike in the plebiscite, which was held manually and which Gianni and Sema took opposing sides, it is difficult to say at this time if either side can claim they would be cheated with Monday's automated elections. Mai.
Thank you, David Santos there, our senior correspondent, reporting live from Cotabato City. Cynthia Villar emerges as the front-runner in the final pre-election survey of Pulse Asia. This is the first time Villar got past fellow re-electionist Grace Poe. They've been sharing the spot in previous surveys. The next spots were taken by Pia Cayetano, Bongo, Bong Revilla, and Lito Lapid. Also making the list, administration bets Bato de la Rosa, Sani Angara, Aimee Marcos, Nancy Binay, and Coco Pimentel. Brothers JV Ejercito and Jinggoy Estrada made it to the top 15, which also includes Bam Aquino and Francis Tolentino. The survey was conducted from May 3rd to 6th among 1,800 respondents. This is Newsroom Weekend on CNN Philippines. Welcome back. President Rodrigo Duterte will vote in his hometown, Davao City, on Monday. Here's our senior correspondent, Ina Andalong, with a look at where the president will cast his vote.
We're here at the Daniel R. Aguinaldo National High School in Davao City. This is going to be one of the busiest schools on Election Day because this is where President Duterte is going to vote. Okay, so now we're gonna find the president's name on the voters list. He's in cluster 361, his precinct 1245A. There it is. We understand there are other Dutertes voting in the same precinct where the president is listed. There it is, the president's name, Rodrigo Roa Duterte. Above his name, Jocelyn Roa Duterte. That's the president's sister. There's a third Duterte also voting in the same precinct. There it is, Sara Zimmerman Duterte, of course, presidential daughter, and the city mayor.
Security personnel have been regularly patrolling the school. Maintenance people also doing last-minute cleanups, while some media outlets have already set up their working areas.
We're heading to the classroom where President Duterte is going to vote. But before that, let me show you these duct tapes on the floor. These were actually placed here in preparation for the coverage on Election Day. This is where cameras are going to be allowed. So a few days before Election Day, networks have already begun marking their positions here. For example, we've already placed or written our name here, CNN Philippines. That means we have this slot reserved. Journalists or reporters are only going to be allowed up to this point, which is about a few steps away from precinct 361. That's, again, where President Duterte is going to vote. This is the classroom. Unfortunately, it's locked, so obviously we cannot give you a better glimpse of what's inside. But we're going to try to take a peek from the window here to show you how the setup is inside the classroom.
The table for the election officers is ready, as well as the seats that will be used by voters.
So again, this is going to be one of the busiest precincts on election day, for sure one of the most monitored as well. Security is expected to be extra tight in this school, the Daniel R. Aguinaldo National High School. President Duterte usually votes on the last hour of election day, so perhaps it's soon before precincts close at 6 p.m. From Davao City, Ina Andolong, CNN Philippines.
The Education Department says teachers are very much ready to perform their duties for the midterm elections. More than 500,000 DepEd personnel will be deployed for election duty, while more than 36,000 schools will be used as polling centers. Here in the studio to talk to us some more about this is our correspondent, Paolo Barcelon. Hi, Paolo.
Good evening, Mai. Thank you for having me here.
So, Paolo, you've been monitoring the DepEd's election preparation. So, are they ready?
Yes, Mai, they're basically ready. Now, the Education Department has deployed at least 531,000 personnel. More than half of them are teachers serving as members of the Electoral Board. Now, they will serve as members of the Electoral Board in the more than 36,000 schools that will be used as polling centers. Mai, the DepEd has also formed its own election task force and command center that will monitor reports mula dun sa mga DepEd personnel on the ground. Now, some of their tasks will be to monitor whether or not the transportation allowances have been delivered on time, or kung may mga nasira ba, any election and paraphernalia that have been damaged. So if ever there's anything that needs action, they would be more than ready to ask the COMELEC for help.
Sabi mo nga, no, frontliners ang ating mga teachers at ang DepEd personnel. And as you also all know, concerned agencies started preparations months ago. They would have wanted to start much earlier, but as I understand, the DepEd was somehow delayed. What did you find out?
Well, Mai, it's actually the 2019 budget. The late passage of the 2019 budget impacted the conduct of the elections. Now, this is what Education Undersecretary Elaine Pascua had to say about the effects of the budget on election preparations.
That line item in the General Appropriations Act for DepEd for election purposes, like the election task force, has never been there in the previous budget. So we could not advance funds for that.
Now, my Undersecretary Pascua told us that the election plans have been delayed because of the budget, and they had to cram their preparations for 2 to 3 weeks. This is because they had to work with a reenacted budget from the 2018 budget, which was an effect of the late passage of the budget. Now, all in all, the total budget of the DepEd for the elections is for the 2019 is 501.1 billion pesos, of which 50 million is allocated for the maintenance of schools after election. It's very important to note that this budget is important because it would help in maintaining the venues, making sure that our students would have a place to study at maayos yung mga schools come after the elections.
Now that preparations are in place, what can we expect from the DepEd in terms of monitoring the situation on the ground and reports on the ground? As you know, napaka-importante ang role ng mga teachers on election day. They'll also be serving as a Board of Election Inspectors.
Now, you mentioned the role of teachers, May. No? Hindi lang yung mga teachers at mga media networks na nakikipagsabayan sa teknolohiya, because the DepEd for the first time will be using a mobile app to help monitor the conduct of the elections. This app will be initially available on Android phones, and it will be used by DepEd personnel to enable them to send reports from the ground before and after the conduct of elections. Now, use of this app is not mandatory, but the DepEd says it will help boost the speed in which they get those reports, because we all know very important that the DepEd Command Center gets information regarding what's going on the ground.
One last thing, yung allowance ng teachers, kasi yun ang main concern din nila, no, among other concerns, no. Paano nila makuha ang allowance nila this time around, especially since dati may mga problema sa withdrawals, sa bank deductions? Anong gagawin ngayon?
Those problems, Mai, that you've mentioned, yun ang balak ngayong isolve ng DepEd, because they're planning to give out these allowances in cash. How are they going to give it, no? Honoraria are going to be paid in cash after their work as election board members are done, alongside 50% of the travel allowances, which is 500 pesos. Now, the other 50% of the travel allowances may be given to election officers during the final testing and sealing, which is scheduled from May 6 to May 11. So that way, they would be able to go around the precincts and ensure that all preparations are in place this coming midterm elections.
Okay, sana mas maayos na ngayon, ano? Thank you for joining us tonight, Paolo Barcelon.
Thank you very much, Mai. It's my first time here. Thank you very much.
And that's what's happening in the newsroom this Saturday, May 11. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Stay with CNN Philippines, where we tell the story of the Filipino. Good night. Welcome to a special edition of Newsroom. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Last-minute preparations are being made for tomorrow's elections. Over 61 million Filipinos are expected to elect local government officials and members of the 18th Congress. The Philippine National Police have deployed around 150,000 officers. Meanwhile, 500,000 personnel from the Education Department will be assigned in more than 36,000 schools that will be used as polling centers. There are more than 18,000 elective posts at stake in the 2019 elections. Among these, 12 senators and over 240 members of the House of Representatives. We have our correspondents on standby to check final preparations for tomorrow's polls. Our senior correspondent, Ina Andolong, is in Davao City, where President Duterte and his family will cast their votes. Our Makoy Popioco is in Cebu, the country's most vote-rich province. And also joining us here in the studio, political analyst Dennis Coronacion. All right, we first go to Davao City, the Duterte family's home base. Everything is all set for the president's vote tomorrow. Our senior correspondent, Ina Andolong, is keeping tabs. Hi, Ina, tell us, how is it looking there on the eve of the elections?
Hi, Mai. We're here at the Daniel R. Aguinaldo National High School, where, as you mentioned, President Duterte is going to vote tomorrow. The situation here really is just calm and quiet. Election paraphernalia are all set. We've just been seeing voters here already checking, making sure that their names are on the voters list. And you know, we've gone around a number of schools here, and the situation is really practically the same. We've not seen any problems so far. And as far as preparing for tomorrow's elections are concerned, vote counting machines have already been delivered to schools, the ballot boxes as well. Today we just saw some teachers doing some last-minute cleanups in their schools, some of them also preparing waiting areas to make sure that voters tomorrow will be comfortable. You know, we covered the 2016 elections here, Mai, and based on our experience then, elections here in Davao City run quite smoothly. For these elections, 3 of the president's children are running. Mayor Sara is seeking re-election. Sebastian or Baste is running for vice mayor, while former vice mayor Paolo is running for congressman of the 1st district. And you know, it's interesting to point out that we've hardly seen any campaign posters of the president's children around the city, perhaps with a strong hold of the Dutertes here. They really don't see any much need for them to campaign aggressively anymore. The only time we saw their campaign posters was at the venue of their local parties meeting the Avance held here a couple of days ago. Other than that, most of the campaign posters we see around the city are for those who are running for councilor and party list groups. So again, elections for Davao City all set for tomorrow. Mai?
Ina, any word on how the first family is spending the day? It's also Mother's Day today.
Yes, well, President Duterte was in Manila yesterday. He attended the meeting de avance of PDP Laban last night. We understand he's still not here in Davao City, but he will be flying in later today. We asked about his schedule. He has no schedule today, no private meetings as well. So he will be just spending the day resting. We also got in touch with some staff members of his children, and we were told that basically the family really just spends the eve of elections just resting. Mai?
Thank you, Ina Andalong, reporting live from Davao City. It's all systems go for the midterm elections. As far as the Education Department is concerned, hundreds of thousands of teachers will be stationed in polling centers nationwide. Their preparations, however, did not come without challenges. Paolo Barcelon tells us more.
The Education Department says it is very much ready to perform duties for the 2019 midterm elections. More than 500,000 DepEd personnel will be deployed for election duty this year. Nearly half of them are teachers who will serve either as chairpersons or members of the Board of Election Inspectors. More than 36,000 schools will be used as polling centers where voting will be held from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. For the first time ever, DepEd election personnel will be able to report situations on the ground before and after elections. This after the agency launched its election monitoring app exclusive to the Android platform. The app allows members of the Electoral Board to submit reports in less than 5 minutes.
Here, unhampered yung flow ng information and consolidated agad in 3 different levels, division, region, and national. Kaya pag tinanong nyo kami later on, ano nang nangyari, may nasunog ba, o meron bang nasira, sabi namin as of this time, wala. No? Or sabi na as of this time, meron.
Executing the Education Department's election plans did not come easy, as it had to cram in its preparations in a span of 2 to 3 weeks. Education Undersecretary for Administration Elaine Pascua says this was due to the delays in passing the 2019 budget, which includes 50 million pesos funding for maintenance of schools to be used for the elections.
It is because that line item in the General Appropriations Act for DepEd for election purposes, like the Election Task Force, has never been there in the previous budget. So we could not advance funds for that.
Election allowances will now be given in cash instead of through ATM cards to allow election personnel to fully utilize their allowances. Payment of allowances shall come from the Commission on Elections and must be given within 15 days from the May 13 polls.
Nabawasan ka ng 50, for example, kasi yung yung tax mo is 350, hindi mo na ma-withdraw yung 50. Kasi dahil doon sa cash card mo. Tapos may bank charges ka pa, mas mahirap na. So,
honoraria for all election personnel shall be given after completing their election duties, while 50% of their 1,000 peso travel allowance may be given during the final testing and sealing of machines, with the other half given alongside the honorarium. Finally, the DepEd also reminded its election personnel to strictly follow election and civil service guidelines, such as not wearing anything that would identify them with a particular candidate, or even to accept food given to them by poll watchers. Tarpaulins and streamers of candidates are also not allowed in the polling centers. Violations of such policies may entail administrative and criminal penalties and liabilities. Paolo Barcelon, CNN Philippines.
The Philippine National Police has deployed close to 150,000 personnel to secure key areas nationwide, including voting and canvassing centers. The PNP says there's no reported security threat to the midterm polls.
We're in a very good position. There is no validated threat, no reported threats coming from the threat groups. So at this point, the peace and order situation is very good, leading to the May 13 polls.
The PNP spokesperson also has these reminders for the public as several measures are in place.
We remind the public that we remain vigilant and alert to report to the police any untoward incident or anything that you have a concern during the election day. And the COMELEC gun ban remains in force. And the law on vote buying is now being implemented by the PNP. There will be a liquor ban that goes through until May 13, midnight.
In the vote-rich province of Cebu, it's a grueling campaign for local bets. Our Makoy Popioko is keeping an eye on the latest there. Makoy, what can you tell us?
My teachers have been busy with their last-minute preparations. As early as yesterday, they have posted voters' lists like this in their respective precincts. 2 days ahead of the polls, voters have also started to come here to check their precincts. Today, things are even busier here in Guadalupe Elementary School, one of the biggest poll centers in Cebu City. Over 30,000 voters are expected to troop here for Monday's polls. And teachers say they're expecting more people to come here later this afternoon to check their respective precincts. For voters' guidance, there is a tarpaulin bearing all information about the precincts and their assigned buildings right at the entrance of the school. And there is also a map there that will guide voters where to go. Mai.
McCoy, how's the mood there in the city before the elections? And tell us more about the heated rivalry between the mayoral candidates.
That's right, Mai. There is a fierce rivalry here in the city. Incumbent Mayor Tommy Osmeña is being challenged by President Duterte-endorsed Vice Mayor Edgar Labella. Apart from the rival parties, Osmeña has also accused the police of involvement in politics. Osmeña, in fact, has appealed to COMELEC to put the city under its watch, which is apparently not going to happen anymore. Osmeña accused the police of harassment. The police has yet to respond to our questions on this, while Labella has denied his involvement in Osmeña's accusations. President Duterte has repeatedly verbally attacked Osmeña in the past, so this election is really critical because this will determine President Duterte's influence in the city in the next half of his term. Mai.
All right, Makoy Popioko live from Cebu City. Political analyst Dennis Coronacion talks to us about what to expect in tomorrow's polls. We'll be back after this short break. Stay with us. This is a special edition of Newsroom. Welcome back. Pulse Asia yesterday released the results of its final pre-election survey, with Cynthia Villar emerging as the front-runner, the first time she got past Grace Poe. Let's talk about this and other movements in this latest survey. Joining us in the studio is political analyst Dennis Coronacion. He's the chairman of the UST Political Science Department. Good afternoon, Prof. Thanks for joining us. All right, let's talk about this last survey of Pulse Asia, showing more or less who will make it to the Magic 12. How likely is it that this will reflect the actual results? Are we to believe the mainstream surveys?
Well, I think we have to believe the surveys, at least insofar as the top eight positions are concerned. Based on the numbers, we can almost say with certainty that these are the names that are going to appear to land in the top 8 positions, while the rest are, for toss-up. So it depends on the names that landed in the number 9th rank up to the number 15th rank in the surveys, whether they're going to make it in the last 4 positions.
May chance pa yung mga nakaabot ng up to rank 15, pwede pa pumasok sa Magic 12?
Yes, malaki pa ang pag-asa na pumasok sila, so hindi pa dapat sila mawala ng pag-asa.
But based on these surveys, administration bets are likely to dominate the Senate. Ano sa tingin nyo ang magiging general picture ng upper chamber in terms of leadership and dynamics?
Well, if we're going to follow if we're going to base it on the results of the surveys, definitely the new set of senators will be made up of allies of President Duterte. So if ever some of the opposition or the independent candidates would make it in the elections, I think the most that they could get are 2 positions. So the scenario, I think, is going to be a 10 in favor of the administration, 10 in favor of the administration. Now, if that's going to be the result, we can see, we're about to see a Senate that's filled up with the allies of President Duterte.
But does that bode well? Kasi hindi ba dapat may healthy opposition? Kasi ang Senate dapat will provide a check and balance to the executive.
That's right. And the Senate is known as the leaders who are, well, it's the place where independence is very much valued. Also, independent daw ang mga senador natin. And they're not very much influenced by Malacanang. Pero mukhang lumalabas, siguro in the next Congress, baka maging 4 lang o 6. 4 hanggang 6 ang opposition na senador.
Okay, let's talk about the voters. How would you describe the voters of today? Are they discerning in terms of the background of candidates? Don't they care that some of the candidates may mga pending corruption cases or have been accused of corruption? Pero pasok pa rin sila sa Magic 12.
Oo nga, we can say that there's a significant number, that there's a growing number of voters, Filipino voters, who are already looking at checking the background of our senatorial candidates, as well as the candidates at the House of Representatives and the local candidates. We can see this on social media. Nakikita mo na those senatorial candidates who have been tainted with corruption, parang they disdain these candidates. They try to avoid o kaya parang ayaw nila iboto itong mga ganitong klaseng kandidato. So,
pero bakit sa survey pasok sila?
Well, it has something to do with, I suppose, with the with the popularity. Despite the fact, this is a bit odd, and I'm surprised too. Despite the fact that they are involved in, say, corruption cases, plunder in particular, they still manage to make it to the surveys. And I suppose that, this has something to do with their popularity, with their, network, and name recall.
Okay, we're electing a new set of leaders, possibly may new blood dyan, in the next Congress. What are the most pressing and significant issues that the next Congress should address?
Tama kayo, possibly may new blood, and possibly coming from the administration coalition. We're talking here of probably Bongo and Bato de la Rosa, but these are familiar faces because they have served the administration. So if the administration candidates will make it to the new list of senators, I think the president is going to enjoy a good support from the Senate, especially na he still has some unfinished business, kagaya halimbawa ng charter change. Federalism is also expected to be tackled
because the
when
president
Congress
promised
resumes.
that before he ends his term.
This is part of his and this is part of his campaign promises. Nariyan din yung ayusin niya yung transportation problem natin, traffic woes in Metro Manila. So the president needs the support of our legislators in pushing for his the remaining part of his agenda.
Doon naman tayo sa members of Congress, particularly the House of Representatives. Well, they should be able to articulate the sentiments of the people they represent. But do we really see this in our elected leaders? Are they able to set aside their personal and political considerations?
That's a good question, because if we're going to look at the background of our personal background of the members of the House of Representatives, majority of them are members of political families or dynasties, and we know for a fact that a good number of dynasties do not really advance the interest of the public, but rather they advance their own interests. And interestingly, the party list organizations are also are put on the spot because of the fact that, because of reports that there are some candidates who do not really, who do not represent the interests of the party list that they are where they're running in.
Also goes to show why we are still in this state. Like most of our provinces, mahirap pa din, di ba? Walang access to basic education, good education, basic services, health services, water, electricity, di ba?
Tama, kasi ang mukhang kalalabasan ng ating eleksyon, ang mga leaders na mauupo na naman, mukhang pare-pareho pa rin. So it's more of the same if we're going to ask about the future of Philippine politics. It's
Also, let's talk about our party list system. We're electing 61 party list representatives. Don't you think in most cases, sa ating mga botante, this is just an afterthought? Yung iba, hindi naman siguro boboto ng party list, ano?
Oo, pwede rin nilang hindi.
Nakakaligtaan nila.
Pero based on the surveys naman, lumalabas na there's a high level of awareness among our voters about the party lists. So they are aware, and we are hoping that such high level of awareness is going to lead to a enlightened decision making when it comes to choosing the right party list organization.
Sana nga, mag-isip ng mabuti ang mga botante natin bukas. Thank you for joining us, Prof. Dennis Coronacion. Good to have you here. We take a look at where the president will cast his vote tomorrow after this short break. This is a special edition of Newsroom. Stay with us. You're watching a special edition of Newsroom. Thanks for joining us. President Rodrigo Duterte will vote in his hometown, Davao City, tomorrow. Our senior correspondent, Ina Andolong, gives us a look at where the president will cast his vote.
We're here at the Daniel R. Aguinaldo National High School in Davao City. This is going to be one of the busiest schools on Election Day because this is where President Duterte is going to vote. Okay, so now we're gonna find the president's name on the voters list. He's in cluster 361, his precinct 1245A. There it is. We understand there are other Dutertes voting in the same precinct where the president is listed. There it is, the president's name, Rodrigo Roa Duterte. Above his name, Jocelyn Roa Duterte. That's the president's sister. There's a third Duterte also voting in the same precinct. There it is, Sara Zimmerman Duterte, of course, presidential daughter, and the city mayor.
Security personnel have been regularly patrolling the school. Maintenance people also doing last-minute cleanups, while some media outlets have already set up their working areas.
We're heading to the classroom where President Duterte is going to vote. But before that, let me show you these duct tapes on the floor. These were actually placed here in preparation for the coverage on Election Day. This is where cameras are going to be allowed. So a few days before Election Day, networks have already begun marking their positions here. For example, we've already placed or written our name here, CNN Philippines. That means we have this slot reserved. Journalists or reporters are only going to be allowed up to this point, which is about a few steps away from precinct 361. That's, again, where President Duterte is going to vote. This is the classroom. Unfortunately, it's locked, so obviously we cannot give you a better glimpse of what's inside. But we're going to try to take a peek from the window here to show you how the setup is inside the classroom.
The table for the election officers is ready, as well as the seats that will be used by voters.
So again, this is going to be one of the busiest precincts on Election Day, for sure one of the most monitored as well. Security is expected to be extra tight in this school, the Daniel R. Aguinaldo National High School. President Duterte usually votes on the last hour of Election Day, so perhaps it's soon before precincts close at 6 p.m. From Davao City, Ina Andolong, CNN Philippines.
A check on the weather tomorrow. Best be ready with your umbrellas as there's a high chance of rain on Election Day. The special weather outlook of Pag-asa shows the intertropical convergence zone can bring scattered rain showers and thunderstorms in the Visayas and Mindanao. Meantime, in most areas of Luzon, rains are also expected, mostly in the afternoon and in the evening. The National Grid Corporation of the Philippines says its transmission lines and facilities are under normal operations a day before the elections. The NGCP assures the public it's been prepared days ahead to ensure there's stable power supply for the entire election period. Energy spokesperson Wimpy Fuentebella says all power plants are not allowed to do maintenance works until a week after the polls. But the Energy Department still advises consumers to conserve electricity as reserves will be thin. Before we go, let's get a clearer picture of tomorrow's polls. Our Pauline Versosa has the numbers that you should know.
Midterm elections, there are over 61 million registered voters nationwide, and that's according to the Commission on Elections. Now, I want to show you the breakdown, so let's take a look at this. There are more female than there are male registered voters, and more than 51% of them are female. That's over 31 million voters, while male voters account for 48% of registered voters, or just about 30 million. When we look at the overall picture regionally, most voters are in Luzon, and they make up more than half of Filipinos qualified to cast their ballot in the midterm elections nationwide. More than 8 million of these are in Region 4A or Calabarzon, which is composed of 5 provinces: Cavite, Laguna, Batangas, Rizal, and Quezon. Meanwhile, more than 23% of registered voters are in Mindanao, and that's about 14.4 million. Close to 21% of eligible voters are in the Visayas, an estimated 13 million people. Now let's look at the top 10 provinces with the most number of voters. Cebu tops the list, followed by 3 provinces in Luzon, Cavite, Pangasinan, and Laguna. In 5th place is Negros Occidental, followed by Bulacan, Batangas, and Rizal, also in Luzon. Iloilo is in 9th place, and in 10th is Nueva Ecija. In terms of age group, a third of all registered voters belong to the youth sector, and they are your first-time voters, over 2.3 million of them. Most are millennials who are 18 to 29 years old, and almost 19 million in total. I'm Pauline Versosa, CNN Philippines.
And that's it for the special edition of Newsroom this Sunday, May 12, 2019. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Stay tuned to CNN Philippines for a comprehensive coverage of the midterm elections. This begins at 4 a.m. tomorrow. And remember, make your vote count. Welcome to a special edition of Newsroom. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Over 61 million Filipinos are expected to elect local government officials and members of the 18th Congress tomorrow. Authorities are down to their final preparations. The Philippine National Police has deployed around 150,000 officers. Meanwhile, 500,000 personnel from the Education Department will be assigned to more than 36,000 schools that will be used as polling centers. There are more than 18,000 elective posts at stake in the elections. Among these, 12 senators and over 300 district and party list representatives. We have our correspondents on standby to check final preparations for tomorrow's polls. David Santos is in Cotabato City, one of the 3 areas under COMELEC control. Anjo Alimario is in Naga City, hometown of Vice President Leni Robredo, and George Cahiles is in Lawag, the bailiwick of the Marcoses. For the first time in recent history, the elections coincide with the Islamic holy month of Ramadan, being observed by about 10 million Filipino Muslims in the country. Our senior correspondent, David Santos, joins us live from Cotabato. David, give us some perspective on how Ramadan could make an impact on tomorrow's elections, especially there in Mindanao.
The Grand Mufti, who is the highest-ranking religious leader of Islam in the country, makes an important appeal on the eve of the elections. He is calling on Muslims, especially here in Mindanao, to renounce intimidation and violence, as well as other forms of wrongdoing, such as bribery and cheating. These acts, Ustad Abu Huraira Udasan says, defy the sacredness of Ramadan. So while they all go through fasting, which espouses the importance of the sacrifice and self-restraint, our Muslim brothers and sisters are also expected to uphold Islamic values taught by the Quran.
The commandment of Allah should be a top priority, rather than the whim of ourselves. We have to control ourselves. We have to avoid violence and all what had been prohibited, like corruption, bribery, and etc. And we have to be loyal. Loyalty to Allah, it means to say obedience to Allah.
Well, it is common knowledge, and in fact, surveys show that in Mindanao, there's a very high perception of election cheating, such as vote buying and the presence of flying voters. But security officials also say the number of election-related violent incidents is now significantly lower than that of previous years, and that Ramadan may have something to do with it. They are hoping it stays this way until the elections are over, Mai.
David, how are Muslims, especially the candidates, responding to this call of the Grand Mufti?
I guess they couldn't agree more, Mai. After all, this is a call coming from the Grand Mufti, who can be compared to a cardinal for Catholics. Almost every Muslim we meet here is observing Ramadan by fasting. It is just amazing how they carry on the month-long sacrifice and view this as a blessing. It also shows how deeply religious they are and how much they value Islamic teachings of the Quran. And for candidates, there is pressure for them to set an example to voters. But as one Muslim woman I met fittingly pointed out to me, Ramadan or not, Muslim or non-Muslim, it is only but proper for voters to do the right thing when they cast their ballots tomorrow. Mike.
David Santos, live from Cotabato City. The Philippine National Police has deployed close to 150,000 personnel to secure key areas nationwide, including voting and canvassing centers. The PNP says there's no reported security threat to the midterm polls. PNP spokesperson Bernard Banak has these reminders to the public as several measures are already in place.
We remind the public that we remain vigilant and alert to report to the police any untoward incident or anything that you have a concern during the election day. And the COMELEC gun ban remains in force. And the law on vote buying is now being implemented by the PNP. There will be a liquor ban that goes through until May 13, midnight.
Meanwhile, the Philippine Coast Guard has deployed units all over the country to assist the military and the police in ensuring a peaceful and orderly elections. It says it will continue to secure ports for passengers returning to their home provinces to cast their votes. The National Telecommunications Commission orders all telco companies to deliver uninterrupted service during tomorrow's polls. The NTC, in a memorandum, calls on telcos to deploy sufficient operations and maintenance personnel. It also requires providers to ensure 99.99% network availability and reliability. The NTC adds telco services for the Commission on Elections must be prioritized. Globe Telecom, meanwhile, earlier said it has optimized its network for fast transmission of election data on Monday. The telco giant also said all its SIM cards provisioned for the polls have passed quality tests. Bicol is the sixth vote-rich region in the country with 3.6 million voters. Vice President Leni Robredo, who hails from Naga City, will vote there tomorrow. Our Anjo Alimario is at the Tabuco Central School. Anjo, how's the situation there? Is everything all set?
Mai, is the proverbial calm before the storm. We're just hours away from the midterm elections. We're here at Tabuco Central School, where Vice President Leni Robredo will be voting tomorrow. We've been informed that she will arrive here at 10 in the morning. She will be joined by her daughters, Aika and Trisha. Now, we went around here earlier and we barely noticed anyone inside the compound. Tabuco is a small school with only 3 clustered precincts. When we checked the polling center of Robredo, we noticed that there's no voters list posted yet. But according to a school official that we talked to, she says that they will put it up tomorrow around 4 in the morning or 2 hours before the polling centers officially open. The vote counting machines are housed in a single room. Now, in 2016, we were also here when then Vice Presidential candidate Robredo cast her ballot. Her vote counting machine malfunctioned, so she had to wait for another hour before the replacement machine arrived. But the school principal assures us that everything went smoothly during the testing. But again, it's another matter tomorrow how these machines will work. Now, on the eve of Election Day, Robredo reminds the voting public to take the elections seriously. She points out it's crucial for Filipinos to vote for candidates who would ensure an independent Senate. But the Vice President admits it's the local elections that she is worried about after receiving reports of vote buying. Mai?
And just speaking of vote buying, how's the security situation there and also in the entire Bicol region?
That's right, Mike. Close to 8,000 personnel will be deployed in the entire region to ensure peace and order. That's according to Police Major Luisa Calubakib. She's the spokesperson of PNP here in Bicol. They are closely monitoring incidents of vote buying and, of course, violations in the liquor ban. And in fact, today, they have already monitored 1 case of vote buying in Masbate and a liquor ban violation in Camarines Norte. So we'll find out tomorrow if more cases will be reported on Election Day, Mai.
Thank you, Anjo Alimario, reporting live from Naga City. The nation is in the thick of preparations for tomorrow's polls, but vote buying is still rampant in many areas. And in Metro Manila, several dozens have been arrested. More on this after the break. Stay with CNN Philippines.
Gusto kong manalo yung paborito kong kandidato.
Para po maano natin yung karapatan natin pagboto.
Kaya tayo boboto kasi para makapili tayo ng tamang tao para mamuno sa buong Pilipinas.
Sabi nga ni Rizal, di ba, ang kabataan ng pag-asa ng ating bayan. So dapat bigyan natin ng pagtingin ng gobyerno yung mga kabataan ngayon. Kasi alam ko na kaming mga kabataan yung gagawa ng way para maging maunlad yung Pilipinas.
Welcome back. This is a special edition of Newsroom as we monitor final preparations for tomorrow's elections. Let's check on the situation up north. Poll officials in Ilocos Norte are racing against time to get one of its precincts ready for Election Day. Our correspondent, George Cahiles, now joins us live from Nawag City. George, tell us what happened.
Well, Mai, it's all systems go for the elections here in Ilocos Norte, except for a precinct in Pagudpud Town. Earlier, the COMELEC and the Board of Election Inspectors carried out its final testing and sealing of a vote counting machine, or VCM, at Subec Elementary School in Pagudpud Town. But during the process, they encountered a problem. The machine did not read or accept the PIN given to the BEI. That's why they cannot proceed with the FTS. Now, my election officer, Angeles Calumpit, says they figured that they were given the wrong SD cards and I buttons. Calumpit says they got the SD cards and I buttons meant for Barangay Sulbec in Pasukin, Ilocos Norte. That's 1 letter difference. Now, upon communication with the COMELEC, the mix-up was traced at the Santa Rosa hub of COMELEC. This is not the first time that they encountered a problem with the final testing and sealing of VCM in that precinct. On May 9, they encountered a problem as the machine couldn't read the SD cards. Kalupit says to get the new SD cards and I-buttons, they will go to the COMELEC regional hub in San Fernando, La Union, which is roughly 8-hour drive from Pagudpud. Kalupit says they will just do the FTS tomorrow. Mai.
George, if they will do the final testing and sealing tomorrow, how will this affect the polls in that precinct?
Well, Kalumpit says they plan to do the FTS before they open the precincts. Now, they're hopeful that things will be going smoothly tomorrow and they may open the precinct just in time. But now, it is a different thing, Mai, of course, if there will be problems with the FTS tomorrow, because it will definitely cause delays. And since Pagudpud is an election hotspot, Kalumpit says tensions may happen in the area if they will not open the precinct on time. Mai.
Thank you for reporting. George Cahiles there live from Lawag City. Metro Manila Police have arrested a total of 84 individuals so far this weekend for alleged vote buying and selling. 60 were from Makati, 17 from Muntinlupa, 6 from Quezon City, and 1 from Malabon. Metro Manila Police Chief Guillermo Eleazar says vote buying has become rampant or more rampant because cheating has been eliminated with the automated election system.
Dahil nga sa yung technology na gumaganda yung sistema ng ating mga gamit sa COMELEC, so yung dating pwedeng dayain sa bilangan na alis na, kaya nagre-resort na lang dito ngayon sa balik tayo sa basic, di ba? Yung butante, our chief PNP. In the case of the PNP, is very determined. Talagang pinupukpok kami at kaya kami pinupukpok din namin yung aming mga unit commanders na manghuli.
The COMELEC recently activated the Contra Bigay Task Force to go after those caught buying and selling votes. Vote buying has been one big electoral issue for decades. Today, many politicians are still able to buy their way to the most coveted seats. In this report, Joyce Ilas looks into why vote buying persists and why Filipinos are willing to sell their votes.
It's illegal to buy and sell votes. But for many years, this has been the norm in Philippine elections.
In-experience ko na rin yung pagkataas bumoto, simple kang abutan, gano'n.
Sabi-sabi lang, punta tayo doon, meron daw dito abutan, mga gano'n. Yung iba kasi katulad pera na yan eh. Hindi man nila alam kung sino iboto ko. Tanggap lang sila ng tanggap.
For 2 decades now, politicians have been hiring Juan as POOC leader, in charge of buying votes for them. On the night before Election Day, POOC leaders go to a known bailiwick of their patron's opponent. They pay voters there 1,000 pesos each to stay home and not vote.
Kakausapin na kung ilan yung botante sa pamilya nila. Kung ilang kayong botante rito, wag na lang kayong bumoto, babayaran na lang namin kayo. Kasi alam namin na ang iboboto nila yung kalaban namin.
On Election Day, POOC leaders tell voters to go to a specified place before casting their ballot. Their names are listed down before they are given instructions on what to do. At the precinct, voters must discreetly show their failed ballot to the watcher, who is also hired by Juan's candidate.
Kahit nga minsan yung mga teachers, alam, may ano rin yan, nabibigyan. Tapos, pagdating mo nung pag nakaboto ka na, may indelible ka na, pupunta ka na ulit sa lugar na, saka babayaran.
Those who vote for Juan's client, a candidate for mayor, get 1,000 pesos. Watchers are paid 300 pesos to make sure voters deliver on their promise. Watchers are also required to vote for Juan's candidate.
Pag nanalo yung kandidato mo, pwede kang maging empleyado ngayon ng munisipyo. Matatanggap ka agad kasi nakatulong ka ng
Juan doesn't think there's anything wrong with what he does.
Kung hindi namin gagawin yun, kalaban lang namin ang gagawa. Tinatapatan lang namin na gano'n.
CNN Philippines talked to some people who admit to selling their votes or say they know, quote, someone who does.
Sa sobra sigong kahirapan, di ba? Kailangan ng pera. Lalo na yung mga mahirap, madali mabibili. Pera din po yun ng bayan, di po ba? Hindi naman po galing sa bulsa nila yun eh.
A 2018 study by the Ateneo School of Government shows about 40% witnessed vote buying in their community, while 20% admitted to actually selling their votes. Of those who admitted to selling their votes, 2 of 3 said they voted for the candidate who gave them money.
Kung tumanggap ka ng pera, kailangan mo din talaga silang iboto. Kawawa naman din kasi.
Ronald Mendoza, Dean of the Ateneo School of Government, says vote buying is more rampant in areas where the battle among candidates is neck and neck.
I think actually vote buying decides who wins in those intensely
competitive areas.
Mendoza notes many Filipinos sell their votes not just because of poverty. They do it because they have lost their faith in democracy and would rather think of their own benefits first rather than the country.
Pero kung maling tao ang ilagay natin dyan, the possibility is that they will begin to rationalize, oh, because I spent so much getting elected, then I must somehow get that back. And it's okay to get that back because sa akin din naman ang takbo nyo eh.
During elections, all Filipino voters stand on equal footing. All of us, rich or poor, the influential and the powerless, get only one vote each. One ballot may seem too little to affect change. But if majority of Filipinos resist the politics of money and vote wisely, we may just make a difference and together move the country forward. Joyce Ila, CNN Philippines.
President Duterte sends his well wishes to all mothers on their special day. More stories coming up. Stay with CNN Philippines.
Boboto ako sa May 13 dahil gusto kong makatulong sa ating bayan at para magkaroon ng hustisya.
Boboto ako sa May 13 dahil responsibilidad ng mga tao na bumoto.
Boboto ako sa May 13 dahil gusto ko ng pagbabago sa bayan. Yung tamang pagbabago na hindi lang sa dahil gusto ng masa, kundi dahil kung ano yung para sa kinakailangan ng bansa natin.
You're watching a special edition of Newsroom as we count down to the midterm elections. Thanks for joining us. Will voters consider the background and performance of candidates? Will the new set of lawmakers change the dynamics of the 18th Congress? We talked to political analyst Dennis Coronacion to examine the trends leading to Election Day and its possible outcomes.
We can say that there's a significant number, that there's a growing number of voters, Filipino voters, who are already looking at the, checking the background of our senatorial candidates, as well as the candidates at the House of Representatives and the local candidates. We can see this on social media. Nakikita mo na those senatorial candidates who have been tainted with corruption, parang they disdain these candidates. They try to avoid o kaya parang ayaw nila iboto itong mga ganitong klaseng kandidato. So,
pero bakit sa survey pasok sila?
Well, it has something to do with, I suppose, with the, with the popularity. Despite the fact, this is a bit odd, and I'm surprised too. Despite the fact that they are involved in, say, corruption cases, in plunder in particular, they still manage to make it to the surveys. And I suppose that, this has something to do with their popularity, with their, network, and name recall.
Okay, we're electing a new set of leaders, possibly may new blood dyan, in the next Congress. What are the most pressing and significant issues that the next Congress should address?
Tama kayo, possibly may new blood and possibly coming from the administration coalition. If the administration candidates will make it to the new list of senators, I think the president is going to enjoy a good support from the Senate, especially na he still has some unfinished business, kagaya halimbawa ng charter change.
Numbers definitely play a big part in the elections as voters prepare to choose the country's next set of leaders. Trisha Tarada breaks it down for us.
It took them several months, some even years to prepare. Many had millions and billions of pesos to spare to win a place in the last 3 years of the Duterte administration. There are over 43,000 candidates running for the 2019 midterm elections, but only less than half of it will make it to the cut. There are 12 seats for senators, 61 for party lists, 224 seats for the House of Representatives. There will be 81 governors and vice governors, 780 slots for provincial board members. 1,634 mayoral and vice mayoral seats are up for grabs, and over 13,000 seats will go to city councilors. Their fate lies on the power of 61.8 million voters. Calabarzon is expected to deliver the highest number of votes with 8.6 million voters. The National Capital Region ranks second in vote-rich areas with 7 million voters, followed by Central Luzon, Visayas, Bicol, and Ilocos regions. In Metro Manila, Quezon City records the most number of registered voters, followed by Manila and Caloocan cities. Local absentee polls delivered 2,816 votes. This is 9% of the 29,000 total approved applications. COMELEC says voter turnout in midterm elections is historically lower than in presidential elections. It's normally pegged at 75%, but the poll body aims for higher figures this time around.
There is an increased chance that you will decide on that day, hey, I think I want to vote. So we expect to see higher than average voter turnouts. Right now, it's hard to peg it to a number, but we're hoping that we approximate or we come close to the 80-81%.
COMELEC says it hopes for voters to make informed decisions that will shape the next 3 years of the country. Trisha Terada, CNN Philippines.
Shifting gears before we go, President Duterte takes some time off from politics and leaves this message for mothers on their special day.
Sa lahat ng mga nanay sa Pilipinas at sa buong mundo na lang, Happy Mother's Day at I'd wish you a very happy and contented life. I know how is it to be a mother because may nanay ako at nakita ko ang hirap at ginawa niya para sa pamilya niya. Pero mabuhay kayong lahat, mga nanay.
And that's what's happening in the newsroom this Sunday, May 12, 2019. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Stay tuned to CNN Philippines for a comprehensive coverage of the midterm elections. This begins at 4 a.m. tomorrow. Remember, make your vote count.